better equipment, I wouldn't have to write one for 20 seconds, but I don't know what else to do. Hey guys, what's up? Hey, we're back here with another episode of Talkin' Nonsense. It's been a couple weeks since we did one, but we were gone for the state tournament, trying to get ready for it for basketball, and been talking to Dallas for the last week and asked him to come and join me again because a lot of you guys said you really liked the first episode, even though the internet kind of screwed with us. But so he agreed to come back on, and I kind of just asked him to put something together because he's a lot better at that than I am, and then I can just kind of roll off of it. So we'll get started here with that. I don't have a clue what you wrote down, so I don't know what we're getting into here. So it makes it a little more exciting for me. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, it's plenty.
Is yours on? Your mic? Now.
How about now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. There, we
better.
got you. Okay. All right, so yeah, let's just, I'll just kind of turn it over to you and tell me what you got, and we can kind of roll off of it.
Well, Wacey talked to me before and asked me about this. Excuse me for a minute. I gotta
No, you're fine.
pull it up on my phone. They talked about this Project Bluebeam, and he asked me if I'd heard much about it, and it's the first time I'd ever heard anything, so I looked through some stuff here that Wacey had found on it, and interesting. And then he's like, "Well, let's just push it a little bit, further, and talk about some conspiracy theory stuff."
Conspiracy theories are always fun, I think.
So anyway, so that's what I decided to get ready for. And see if we can have a good conversation about that, and because that blue beam, that's what it kind of talked about was, the government and some of the things that they're doing, and trying to gaslight us in a few things. So, yeah,
the little bit that I read about, for any of you guys that haven't heard of it, it's something that they started talking about in the 90s, I think is what it said. But it's a plan that they have, and there's like NASA that's included in it, and there was somebody else, but it's basically to make a false impression. So one of the options that's floating out there is either like an alien invasion, or the other one is the second coming, where they will do like almost like is it holographic? Is that what it's called? Like holographic or hologram, whatever it is. And make it look like it's actually happening, but it's not. Like I remember when that holograph or whatever it's called, when it first came out, they did it with Tupac.
Yeah.
And it really did look for a minute like he was there, but after you kind of watched it, you could tell, but if this is something real that they really have plans of doing, it makes me think a lot, because obviously it's going to be way far away, like whereas the Tupac, when they had him on the stage where fans are only 100 feet away most, so
yeah,
it makes me wonder what it would really look like, and if it would be convincing to make people think that it was real, whether it's the aliens or the second coming.
For sure. Yeah, it kind of makes a guy think twice about the world we live in today. But I wanted to start with sorry, I got a itch here. Rubbing my eyes from last night. I need a little bit more sleep from the celebration. So anyway, conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy theory? So the government, and when I say the government, that doesn't mean, the current president or our current, we have a great senator in Mike Lee, I think we've got a great senator and a great president and vice president in Trump and Vance, and but they they can't, clean up everything and do so it's still the government, that establishment's still there. So not saying that the country isn't headed in the right direction, because I think it is for the most part. There's still a few things, that I think that we could definitely work on, and even some of those guys, they don't always do it perfect, but I think it's better than what we've had in the recent past. So conspiracy theory. So the left, they love to change definitions of words. They love to overuse the terms, and so they've made the word conspiracy mean pretty much nothing.
Well, it's kind of like the word racist.
Yeah.
They've used it so much that now people get called a racist and they don't even care, because for one, most of them, they know they're not. So it just kind of blows right over.
Yeah.
They're about to that point with anti-Semite. There's just a lot of them that, they overuse it so much that the words lose their meaning.
So that's with conspiracy theory. It's, if anyone that says conspiracy, the media is the main thing that's trained our ears and our eyes and the definitions of these things to make it mean nothing. It used to kind of mean something, and it used to be like the tinfoil hat wearing people,
right.
That, they're kind of crazy, they're kind of going out on a limb. But anymore, I don't think anything would surprise me. Anything that I've heard, it will not surprise me. That's
how I am, because there's so much that has been revealed. You're just like, well, I don't know that anything right now would make me just lose, surprise me, because you just can't put anything past any of them. But the crazy thing is, we're finding out that it's not just the left. There's a lot on the right that's deeply involved in a lot of this corrupt stuff, I mean, it's just a great big giant mess. But it gets a lot of us to the point to where, like, we don't even know what to believe anymore. Like the cartel guy that was just killed. There was videos
in Mexico,
of
right?
in Mexico. There was videos of buildings burning and all this stuff going on, and I ended up seeing one. It was, what was it, the day after or 2 days after? A lady that's down there, she said, there's some guy, some journalist here in America. I had never heard of him before, but she says he's got my picture and 2 other women, and she showed his page with the pictures. And his story is that these 3 American women are trapped in Puerto Vallarta in the mess, and they can't get out. These 3 American women. She says, well, first off, I'm not even American. I'm Canadian. She says, I'm from Canada. And she's like, and I live here in Puerto Vallarta for half the year. But she says, take a look at what's around me. She like panned her phone around, and there's no smoke, there's no fires, there's no chaos. She's like, everything you're seeing on the news is bogus. She said it was a mess for about 24 hours, but then, the fires were gone, everything was gone. It was just like a quick aggressive purge from the cartel because of the guy being killed, but then it was done.
Okay.
So that gets me to start thinking, well, how many people here in America are still thinking right now that Puerto Vallarta is a mess because of all this going on?
Yeah.
Because I heard my brother talking about it, my dad talking about it, and I kind of told them the same what I just told you, and I'm like, well, what I'm seeing is it's not what they're saying it is, And there was another guy I just seen yesterday in Dubai. They were saying that something happened in Dubai. I can't remember what it was, but basically chaos. And he's like, no, it's not. He said, here, I just went, it was something at the mall.
Okay.
They were saying something had happened at the mall, and he's like, I literally just walked out. I got my hair cut at the mall. He showed it, and then there was some building, I don't know what it's called, but he says, this is the one they're saying that's being destroyed. You can see right there, it's not. And he's like, I'm telling you, I live in Dubai. I am currently here right now, and what you're seeing is not what's happening. So they do all this kind of stuff, which I think it's got to be AI that they're using to create this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Maybe not the Puerto Vallarta, because there were fires according to that girl, but they were gone within a day.
Yeah.
So, but it's this kind of stuff that, conspiracy theories that get people thinking about, well, what are they actually doing with AI, or why do they want us to believe that this whole place is under fire right now?
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Don't know why either, but there's some deeper meanings to it, and there's usually some cover up. There's usually some money laundering, human trafficking, all that stuff that goes along with all that.
Well, it seems like that's another thing too. Whenever there's a new event, it's distracting from something else that we have no idea what's even going on.
Yeah.
Like they're saying they brought back the Epstein stuff to distract from the fraud that they found, to distract from the ICE that's going on because it was just causing a mess, right?
Yep.
Which the Epstein stuff I believe is real. I don't know what to believe in it because there's so much that's been redacted, which to me is nonsense. If you're going to release it, it shouldn't have anything redacted. Maybe the minors, maybe their names, I totally understand that, but not all the people involved and everything else. But then you hear, this is kind of what throws me off, you hear Trump make certain comments that you're like, it's been several months ago, but when he started coming out and calling it a Democrat hoax, people were pissed because they're like, dude, this is something you ran on saying that you were going to get to the bottom of this. But then there's another guy I listened to who kind of analyzed it, and he's like, this could be a game plan from him because he's calling it a hoax. Well, now all of a sudden the Democrats want it released. So he's like, we don't really know. He said Trump is a smart man. He's not stupid. He's a businessman. He understands things. He's, what's the word?
Savvy?
Yeah, he's savvy, and I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But anyway, he knows steps to take to get what needs to happen, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But you hear, people, they see a headline or they hear a headline and they just stop with that. So Trump calls Epstein files a Democrat hoax. And then that's all they read. They don't care to dig into it or nothing else like that. So now you've got all these people that, well, he's lying. He's not doing what he said. I'm never voting there. I'm never voting for him. And it's like, oh my gosh, man. First off, we don't even know. Like, I don't know. There's so much going on. It's such a mess in this whole entire world, in this country. I'll be honest with you. I don't really care about the world too much because there's so much here that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
But we still can't seem to focus on here. Like the stuff going on in Iran right now. Me personally, I mean, maybe I don't understand it fully, but I don't understand why we're even there.
I don't know a lot about it, but from the threats that they've been given, I'm pretty sure you got to take that pretty serious.
But are we doing it, and do we have proof that the threats are being given, or are we being told by Israel? Because I know a lot of the attacks we've done has been to help Israel.
Yeah, I know that's part of it. I don't think Trump would get directly involved if they weren't threatening the U.S.
I would hope not. I mean, I would hope that would be why he would go in, but...
Islam, well, not actual Islam, but the radical side of Islam, right. They have hated Jews and Christians since Muhammad.
Right.
So, but it's kind of, yeah, it's a tough one. We'll have to find out more because I usually listen to talk radio, and it's Monday through Friday, and I think a lot of this stuff was happening yesterday.
It was. I didn't know about it till last night.
So I think we'll hopefully tomorrow get back on the radio, because I don't trust normal media. I got to get my information from good sources, and so hopefully I can get brushed up on it a little bit more, just to, not like I'm going to change the world, but if I can kind of keep up on it a little bit and try to at least
Well, I think that's kind of how we all need to be, at least know what's going on, at least kind of be aware, because a lot of these, I guess they're influencers, but they're not. They're like the podcasters or the radio guys, like they always keep saying, the ones I listen to, like, you got to use your voice, you got to get involved, well, it's hard for us to get involved because we don't deal with that stuff right here in Tabby, I mean, there's nonsense going on in the bigger part of the state in Salt Lake, but I guess the only thing you could do is try to get involved at a state level in the politics, but I'm not a person of worthy of doing that. I don't know enough about it. I don't, I just kind of use my common sense, good versus bad type of stuff, which I think that's what most people should do.
Yeah.
But they say, use your voice, and you can come on here, like we can talk about this, or anybody can talk about this, but there's always those people that just because you don't agree with them, or you're saying something that they think is a lie, then you're just spreading lies, you know what I mean? Yeah. Which is fine, because you're not gonna get everybody But at the same time, everybody's entitled to their own opinions. But some people don't understand it's just an opinion. It's not a,
For sure.
you know, just because I say like if you and I are up here and you say you think we have a good president and a vice president, and if I turn around and say, well, I disagree, that's fine, right? Which I don't. I agree with, you know, I do agree. But that's okay, but most people can't take it that way. It's like you can't even have a discussion with them.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who I've been talking to, and I think as long as everything lines out, he's going to come on with me next weekend. And him and I do disagree almost, I would say probably 99% on politics. But he's a good dude. Like he really is. He's been through a lot in life. He's made something of himself. He's got on the right track. And we were really good friends when we worked together. We could sit in the office and talk about this politics stuff, and we could disagree and be like, well, I don't think that, you know, and this is why, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, man, well, we'll see you in the morning. And we still we don't keep in contact as much as we used to, but he messaged me on Instagram about something that I had shared, and we just kind of started talking a little bit, you know, and he was telling me that that's what he respected about me, is we don't have to agree, and I feel the same way about him. And to me, if we could have more people like that, be a little more open-minded,
Yep.
You don't have to agree with me, you know, that's fine, but we can still get along, we can still be civil, we can still live in the same place and try to make each other's lives better, you know, but
For sure.
But it's hard with all the stuff going on because a lot of people believe the first thing they hear,
They do.
or they have all these people that have hated Trump from day one just because they were told to hate him. Because, of course, there's things he's done that not everybody likes, but has there ever been a president that's done everything that everybody liked? You know, I mean, he's human.
Yeah.
He's not, you know, and he says things that people don't like, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me.
No.
I don't care.
Me either.
I think we need to have someone that's a little hard-headed and just kind of speaks his mind, you know, because we've never had that before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has caused a little bit of discomfort with people. But I think if they can just look past the discomfort and kind of look at the big picture of what people's trying to make happen,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't be so focused on the hate and you could just talk amongst each other.
For sure.
I don't know.
No, that's a good point.
So what, did you come up with any certain theories?
Well, so just talking about the term conspiracy theory, when I hear that, I think, well, it's kind of getting to where it's like, well, we probably better pay attention if they're screaming conspiracy, you know, because it's probably the truth. It's probably the truth.
There's been a lot of theories that have ended up being true.
And that's why it's called conspiracy theory, not conspiracy fact.
Right.
Because, you know, it's a theory, but I kind of gravitate towards a lot of that, and I kind of, there's been some crazy ones. I'm just like, well, if that's true, okay, but I don't think I believe that, but if it is, it wouldn't surprise me. So if it doesn't directly affect me, I mean, some stuff interests me more than others.
Sure.
But kind of with some of the more recent, I guess, conspiracies would be, I think one of the biggest ones is with the COVID in the Wuhan lab there in China. And now COVID is real. You know, I got a little bit of flack, and I always get a little bit of flack because I like to say what I think, and people know that about me, and sometimes it can be good, and sometimes it's not. And I feel like I'm getting a little more mature as I get older and a little bit smarter, and try to not be so controversial. But if something that I think is real and is true, I like to voice it. So, but it's a real thing, and people did die from it. Now, was it blown out of proportion? Yes. Was there really as many deaths as did COVID really cause as many deaths as what it's recorded? No, because people that were dying with cancer and terminal illnesses and car accidents. If they had COVID, they would said, "Oh, they died from COVID." You know.
Well, and they had all those tests that were altered to where it would show it'd pick up any little teeny tiny thing.
Yeah.
And there's proof of that. You know, if you want to go look it up, there is proof of it. But I personally met a guy when I was working in Salt Lake. He was a delivery truck, and he came over and brought some parts for our mechanics. Okay. And we got talking to him. He had been there before, but I had never met him. And he was telling us that he had to get back on the road because he had lost his son. You know, he had died. And I was like, oh, man, what happened? And he had some kind of like a heart disease or something that he was born with. But it was during COVID. and he went to the hospital, so they tested him. They tested everybody that went in, right? Well, they put COVID on his death certificate, and he threw a fit. He said he was actually in a lawsuit with them because that is not why he died.
No.
But I never heard whether it got changed or not, but I know on the official stamped death paperwork at the hospital, they put it as COVID. So that's the kind of stuff, like you were saying, the numbers were altered, and it was a scare tactic.
Yes.
To try to get people to take the vaccine. Yeah. Which proved out it wasn't really all that helpful.
No. No, there was a lot of that stuff in the Wuhan lab, and with Cal, I can't believe I'm a blank on the guy that
Fauci.
I don't know. Yeah. He there's actually some things out there that that's pretty condemning about him and some of the things that he probably was involved in over there, and probably mixing it. I can't remember what disease they'd mixed it with now, but it was one of the more common ones, but just kind of made it more contagious and more common, and it was some warfare,
right?
With mainly towards the United States, and it was all within our government too, just so we could affect elections and get Biden in there instead of Trump, and so and that kind of goes into the the election fraud and stuff like that too. It kind of all come with it, and they're doing an investigation right now that they're actually found 300,000 ballots that may not be legit from Georgia. So
I heard about that.
So Trump might be the first president since FDR that's been elected 3 times. Obviously, he didn't get a sit in office,
right?
But just with that alone, and we know that there was voting laws illegally changed, because judges don't make laws; they interpret the law and uphold the law.
Right.
They can't make, and they were starting to change laws and do things that were illegal. And so when people say, "Oh, that's just conspiracy," there's no proof. It's like, well, on paper it looked like those ballots or this was legit, or they're trying to pass the voter ID thing right now in Congress. I believe they're still waiting on that 60 votes in the Senate. I think the House has got it through. I can't remember if they're quite there yet or not, but it's Chuck Schumer and some of them are still kind of fighting that, but they've done a lot of great things between 2020 and 2024 so that we could actually get some integrity in our elections and at the state level and at the federal level here, if we can get Congress to pass the and it's just a common sense thing. We have to have ID to vote, or for to have ID to vote, it's not that crazy. We have to have a bank account. We have to have it to drive a vehicle. We have to have it to rent an apartment. There's not very many things you can do without an ID. And it's easy to get birth certificates, things like that, Social Security cards if you've lost them.
That's the kind of thing that I just don't understand, is the common sense factor of it. Why is it exactly what you just said? Why is it such a big deal to have an ID to vote?
Well, it's here's the left trying to use picking on poor people, and they're actually the most racist by saying it. That they say, well, it's racist because black people are poor and they can't get IDs and this and that. And I'm like, well, that's pretty racist in itself, right there, saying that. Because there's just as many black people that are smart and intelligent than white people or Asians or whatever else. So it's like, that's pretty racist to say that.
Well, and Biden had that comment that said they were talking about the education and having the right, I think it was education. And he said that poor people have just as many rights as white kids. Or poor kids have just as many rights as white kids. And he was talking to a crowd of black people.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But people, I don't know if people don't hear it or if they choose not to hear it because they are so stuck in one way, or But the thing of it is they say stuff, and if you're paying attention, just like you just said, what they say is racist. While they're sitting there telling everybody else they're racist, the words coming out of their mouth are insane. But they get away with it. Not many people call them out on it, so they keep doing it.
Yeah, it's tough when you got the majority of the media that. Which it's turning the other way, CNN and NBC and some of these ratings has been rock bottom, ever since even Trump's first term, he's kind of denounced the media and rightfully so. And people are very skeptical, and I think that's a good thing for people find other sources and find other ways of information and do a little bit more digging into things. But I still think that there's not enough people that care enough to find out what's real and what's legit.
Well, and it's not a bad thing to get it from both sides too.
Yeah,
you know, kind of open up your box a little bit and listen to someone from the other side. I'm sure you've heard of the Young Turks, haven't you?
I don't know if I have.
They do. They're more on the left Democrat side of things. There's two. I can't remember their names right now. There's a man and I believe it's a woman that host it, and they're kind of like a. I've never listened to them. I've heard about them, and I think they're kind of like what Tucker Carlson does, kind of.
Okay.
But he had the guy on, and that was a really good episode because even Tucker asked him, he's like, "You're probably going to lose followers by coming on this show," and he's like, "You know, we talked about that," and he said, "I don't really care because people need to understand that we're all in the same fight here. You know, like we're all together on this," and it's a good episode. So. If you don't listen to Tucker or whatever, if you do, it's a good one to listen to. I can't remember the guy's name, but it says in the description, the Young Turks, you know, that I can't remember if they're actually from Turkey, if that's why they're called the Young Turks.
Probably are.
I think they are. But anyway, it's a good episode to listen to, but just kind of what I was getting at is it's a good thing to hear perspective from the other side too, just to kind of see and then make up your own mind, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you can make your mind up on common sense. When you hear one story versus the other and you think about it for a minute, you're like, well, that just doesn't make any sense logically, you know. So it I don't know.
And usually, if it don't make sense, it's not true.
Right.
Not always. You know, there's some complicated theories and things out there that, in the science world, or some of the math terms, it's way above. You know what I mean? You get into engineering stuff. I mean, obviously, if I don't understand that, doesn't mean it's not true. But
right.
As far as I think your common everyday, you know, if it's, you know, fairly, you know, someone with a GED, you know, that's fairly regular, you know, resident of the United States, you know, citizen that's been around, you know, if it kind of don't make sense, it might not be true, and maybe you ought to look into it and see what's going on.
Well, when we all have that gut feeling, you know, and usually I've never had my gut lead. Every time I've went against my gut feeling, it's bit me in the butt every single time. Nothing major, but just every time, you know.
Sure.
So like that gut feeling is real.
Yeah.
And if you're hearing something or you're reading something, but with that being said, because you said that there's some of these theories that are way out there, so I want to throw one at you and see if you've heard anything about it, because there's a lot going on about it right now, and I've kind of shared it with some people, and they're just like, I don't believe that for 1 second. The human meat plants. Have you seen anything
Never
about
heard
that?
anything about that.
So there's a video going around, and I missed where they found this plant. It's somewhere in the States. I want to say Arizona, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But supposedly it is a meat plant, like a processing plant, but it's human meat. And there's all these theories going around that, well, there's a what do you call the Jewish guys, like they're
rabbis?
Not rabbis. There's a rabbi. There's a video of him talking to someone, and they're talking about the child sacrifices, and the meat is sold to, like, he flat out says, I'd have to search the video. It's on there. You can look it up and find it. But he says that McDonald's is one of their biggest customers. And then you see these videos of people finding weird things in their food from McDonald's. Like, I've seen videos, and I don't know if it's real or not, so this is just what I've seen. But there's like a tooth found in a girl's chicken nugget. I just saw one a week ago that somebody found a fingernail in their, I think in their burger or something like that.
I've heard of things like that before.
And I don't know anybody personally that's ever found anything, and so these videos may be bogus, I don't know.
But a fingernail could be, you know, one of the workers lost a nail, or maybe someone chipped a tooth. Or, that's what my thoughts on it.
And that very well could be.
But I don't know. Maybe, but it could, I never thought about it being actual body parts.
Well, and there's a thing, like, and it's kind of gross to talk about, but Caitlin and I were kind of talking, because fast food, like a Burger King or a McDonald's or a Wendy's, it tastes different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you can come here and make a burger on the grill and make a dang good burger, but there is a different taste to it. And there's something, you know, they put stuff in the food that makes it addicting so that you want to keep having it. That's why most of the country's overweight and out of shape.
For sure.
Because we just get addicted to this food. I have fallen into it. I'm doing a lot better now. I don't eat this stuff anymore. But But it's a crazy theory that's going around that I don't know. I hope that one is a way bogus out there, not true theory. But like we've said before, I really don't think it would surprise me if it came out that it was true. You know, I mean,
no.
There's a video that I sent to my brother and a couple of people on Instagram. It's a lady, and I don't know who she is. She's some, I can't remember if she's some type of doctor or some. She's a well-known woman from what I understood from the video, and she kind of breaks it down and talks about it and saying how it is real, and you know, it is being used in our food and all this. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, holy crap! Like, could you imagine if this is real? You know, I mean, but we've gotten to where, and not because of this, that we started changing our ways way before any of this started being talked about. But we don't buy meat from the store anymore. The reason I quit buying it is you buy it and it looks horrible. It doesn't even look like real meat to me. So a long time ago, we quit buying it. We eat elk. If we run out of elk, we buy some beef from my dad or my grandpa or whatever. You know, we've ate our own meat for, I'll bet, every bit of 10 years now.
Part of the reason, you know, why is they add pork fat to it.
To like our elk and stuff,
your hamburger and stuff in the stores.
Oh, in the stores,
stores they add pork fat because pork fat's cheap, and it makes the poundage go up because they sell it by the pound, and that's why it's kind of different and greasy and you know things like that.
See,
that's
but
what I've heard, so.
We have Jake, when he cuts ours up, we have him put a little bit of beef fat in ours.
Oh, okay.
And we actually this year we processed our own elk right here in the garage. Mine and Caitlin's both. We bought us a grinder and did it all ourselves. And I went up to Max and got some beef fat. They had just cut off some that they butchered, and we ground it up and put it in, and mostly because it helps it stay together. You know. But we only did, I think we only did 10% beef fat.
Okay.
And I want to say Jake told me he usually does around like 15 or something.
Okay.
But I have had it without any in it, and it's a little. I can't do deer without fat mixed in it. To me, it's way too gamey.
Yeah.
Elk's not too bad, but I do like it with a little bit of the fat mixed into it. But I feel like that, you know, the beef that Max butchers, they don't come from million head of cows feedlots. You know what I mean? They're local.
Yeah, for sure.
People that bring their beef in, so it's a good source of where the fat's coming from. So I'm not too concerned about it anyway.
No.
But yeah, that whole human meat thing, it's an interesting rabbit hole, we can call it, that you could go down if you're ever bored. And I hope it's not true, but
I could see that being true in other countries just because they're, you know, a lot of different stuff happens outside of the United States, or even, you know, more like Europe and, you know, some of the more, you know, industrialized nations. But for it to happen here and be an actual plant, it's for one, it'd be legal as heck, and it. Not saying that stuff doesn't happen. It could go on. It wouldn't surprise me, but to actually have plants, I'm like, man, I don't know. That's
well. And my first thought when I saw that, I'm like, how would nobody know about this until just now? Because the way they made it sound, the plant's been around for a while. So I kept thinking, how does nobody know about this if this is a thing? Because it was I really do think it was in Arizona. It's in a place. It's not like it's tucked way back in the woods that you'd never find it.
Yeah,
it's right in the middle of a city. But I don't know, it's, you know, with our food, though, we do have a lot of stuff in our food that is banned in other countries. You know, like, I didn't know this until I heard it on a podcast, and then I went and looked it up. They used Fruit Loops as an example, like our Fruit Loops cereal. They had a box that you buy here in the States and a box you buy in Canada.
Or Europe.
It's
the same.
Theirs came from Canada, but Europe. And, I mean, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah.
And they said it still tastes like Fruit Loops. It just doesn't have all the dyes and all the added crap into it, you know. And so then I wonder, like, who and why started putting all this crap in our food?
Well, they claim, from what I've heard, it's post World War II.
Yes,
and
that's what I've heard too.
That's kind of the timeline I think they're using, is that. And that's one of the subjects I actually wrote down. That I wanted to kind of talk on, and so it segues into that from, you know, is the food. Here's one for you. It kind of goes along with that. So I talked with neighbor down the road here. I'm not going to say his name just for confidentiality or whatever. Fine. And it's not like it's a big deal or anything, but he kind of brought this to my attention, and he actually talked to Senator Winterton about it a little bit. Ron Winterton's our state senator, and was our county commissioner. I felt like he represented us very well and goes to bat for us out at legislation pretty well, and is open to listen to what a lot of his constituents say, and I think we're lucky to have him there. But that's just my opinion. But,
I don't know what he does politically. I've never followed it, but I've poured concrete for him, and he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So he actually given me my CDL driving test too.
Oh, really?
So he's kind of a jack of all trades. He business owner, has a trucking business. He
got a farm.
Yeah. They do some ranching and stuff too. So they, he's real well rounded, and he's like I said, like President Trump. He's not perfect either. You know what I mean? But I think he tries his best. He's not going to make everyone happy, but this guy was telling the senator, and I think the senator did some looking into it. But and Friday I actually saw it really big. I used the app Voxer. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but I got some of my buddies. We Vox back and forth, and I actually was telling him about it before, and actually saw it Friday. And if you looked up in the sky, I was headed back from Duchesne to Tabby, and it's what they call as chemical trails, and they were everywhere. And it was I remember getting up Friday, and it was blue sky, real nice day. And when I was coming back up, it was late morning, early afternoon, coming back up from Utah and feeding cows and things, and they were everywhere, those chemical trails. And there was actually a jet leaving, a big one. And this goes back to this summer when my neighbor down here was telling me about it, and we actually saw an actual real jet that was, just probably a 747 or just a passenger jet, and it was leaving a little bit of a trail. I mean, to us it looked like 2 inches, but I mean it probably was substantial, but it wasn't that big compared to, it wasn't hardly leaving nothing. You could see where the jet stream had come out just a little bit, and behind it was nothing. He's like, well, how come that jet doesn't leave a stream, but look at all these others? And that's why you get that hazy, little cloudy, and it's not real clouds, it's just all that, and that's the chemical trails. And so, not to get it with pollution, because it's not pollution or anything like that, making more carbon in the atmosphere. They're actually spreading chemical out in the atmosphere, out onto the ground. And so that kind of goes back to with our food, and with some of the things that I've go back to that conspiracy theory thing, and the pharmaceuticals and the drugs and things like that. Are these chemicals, are they keeping us a little bit sick? Are they altering our thought patterns? Are they contaminating our farmland? Are they, what I mean?
Are they affecting our weather pattern?
Weather pattern, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things, and it's like, well, why are they doing this? Who is, why are we allowing this? And I think that my neighbor that was trying to get Senator Winterton, I think he was trying to get him to bring it to people's attention. And it kind of seems a little bit far out there, but when you actually look and think about it, and actually saw that other jet, and I'm just like, I've never thought of that before. I've kind of heard a little bit of it maybe before, but it's like right before your eyes. That happens a lot. And so something to pay attention to. But he was trying to get him, I think, to pass or at least introduce some legislation that would ban that in our state. At least get it banned. That whatever they're doing, they can say whatever they want that it's for. But whether it's just like with fluoride, in the water, in certain places of the country. Luckily here, we don't have that at least in our water system here in town. But some of those things are brought up, and just like you said, with the Fruit Loops and the dyes in our food, the preservatives and all those things, it's to keep it's to keep a very few percentage wealthy and in power.
That's the thing, is everything that goes on, it all ties back to the same small groups of people.
Yeah.
And it all comes right back to money every single time, no matter what
money
it
and
is.
Power.
Whether it's food, whether it's the immigration, whatever it is, it all comes back. The pharma, all that. It's all the same freaking group of people.
Yeah.
The thing that drives me nuts is, I'll just use a number that one of the podcasters used. He says it's like a couple hundred people, even if it's 1,000 people that's doing this, that it's coming back, that's getting rich off of this. There's billions of people in the world.
Yeah.
So 200 or even 1,000 of them is ruling billions of people, making us do whatever in the heck they want us to do.
Yes.
That's what blows my mind.
Without us knowing it.
Yeah, without us knowing.
I mean, we kind of do. Like, I guess people like us that kind of, have our theories and things. I don't know if we can do much to change it, but if we can at least talk about it, maybe get the word out there.
That's what's frustrating, is that's the only thing you can do, is talk about it and hope that people, if they are, concerned or interested, then they start looking into it, because that's what you have to do. You can't just take what you hear and run with it. You have to go and read on it a little bit, and you have to read from different sources. You can't just click on the first article you find and take it as gold. You know, I mean, there's a lot of different takes on it and different pages and spins and everything else. So it takes a lot of digging into, But did you see any of the stuff going on with what little bit of snow that has fallen this year?
Mm-mm.
So some people have done some videos. It was somewhere in the Midwest, maybe the South. Well, it doesn't snow a lot in the South. Somewhere.
Well, it did this year, but
yeah. They had their phone on. They said, I'm going to walk outside because I've heard about this with the snow, so I'm going to test it. So they go out, they grab a snowball, come back in, set their phone down, and they're holding it here, and they take a lighter and hold it to the snowball. Well, it's not even melting. It's turning black, like it's burning. And the lady's like, you got to be kidding me. This can't be. So she puts it down. She says, I'm going to go outside and get more. Walks out there. She doesn't change the frame. She keeps it going, grabs the snow, comes back in. Same thing. She's holding it over her sink with a lighter, and it will not burn.
Was her hands wet or anything?
No. She had her bare hands at very first. Grabbed it, held it, and it wouldn't melt. It was just turning black.
It's just paper, confetti?
I don't know. Because, with the chemtrails, they say that there's aluminum that's coming down in some of that stuff. A lot of aluminum's being dropped on our plants, in the air that we breathe. They've been saying all this whole winter, well, we don't have any snow to eat, but they've been saying do not let your kids eat the snow. That little bit of storm we did get, my kids were out there like, look, we're eating yellow snow. Well, they had come and got lemonade and was dumping it. I'm like, guys, I don't know if it's real or not, but don't eat the snow. It might not be that good for you, so don't.
Well, and there is certain pollutants and stuff too. Not saying that there isn't a little bit of that from, I think it's pretty minimal compared to the way the left pushes,
Right.
Climate change and all those things. But even just, we've heard of acid rain and things like that. It cleans the air out and brings it to the ground, and like you said, it's probably not something we ought to directly consume. So,
but it makes you wonder about the weather patterns, like I said, though, because we are March.
Yeah.
And we have no snow.
Yeah.
I know you guys got the same letter my dad got about cows going up on the summer range.
Yep.
I mean, and I'm not saying that the government's doing something that made it not snow. I'm just saying it's weird.
Well, I contribute that too, and it's at least been going on since we were in school, as the cloud seeding.
Yeah.
And we know here to the west of us, that's where all our storms come from usually. I mean, we do get the southern flow, but it usually will come in kind of from the west still. But we know that the big industry out there in Park City and Salt Lake, and the ski resorts, and I think that they've changed the weather pattern by seeding the clouds, and they get way more moisture there than we ever get here.
Oh, yeah.
And when it's forecast for the Wasatch Front to get to weather, it's not for us. It's right here on this Wasatch Mountain Range. It's just like last night coming home from the state tournament there. It was raining out in Salt Lake, good, nice little drizzle, snowing up on top, and I'm like, I'll bet you anything 10 miles off the other side it'll quit. And sure as heck. It's been doing that more frequently here in the last little while. And I know weather patterns change, and we like to blame it on this and that, but and weather patterns have done it for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but it kind of seems like some of this could be a little bit man-made, and
Caitlin was looking up. I guess there's somewhere you can find where all their cloud seeding machines are. Apparently, they've got some up here on Tabby Mountain somewhere.
We've had them around in the valley here. I've seen them before.
You have?
Which that's probably helping like Aspen and them there because it has to go. So they're probably not seeding the clouds here. They're probably seeding them in the West Desert, the Nevada over there. I'm sure they probably seed them for the Sierra Nevadas in California, and we seed them probably for Aspen and some of those places there in Colorado. So it's kind of it's like I don't know. There's some great things that man has done with technology and with the earth, but there's some things that's one of them I don't think we should be messing with.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just me, but yeah, that's with the with the pharmaceuticals and stuff too, and health and food, and that just all ties into all that stuff. It's crazy that we live in such a world that we could be the healthiest that we should ever be, and life expectancy obviously is a lot more than it's been, but it's how much of a quality of life is it really? You know what I mean? So,
well, but if you look back into what the Bible says, you look at some of those first men on the earth. They lived 900 years.
Yeah, Methuselah lived over 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them. I was reading just the other day. This might surprise you. I actually started reading it just because I was curious, and I have nothing else to read. And we're doing this 75 hard thing again, so I'm like, you know what? I'll just.
Well, we're studying the Old Testament in Sunday school this year, so that's just perfect.
Well, you go on the app store to download the Bible, and there's 75 different versions. I'm like, I don't even know what. So it took me a minute to find, because I started reading one, and I'm like, I know this isn't like. I think it was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But it was like modern day reading, because it was saying about Adam and Eve, and it says,
yeah.
Well, he said something like, well, I don't really think you're supposed to do that. And I think I know dang well that's not how it's supposed to be read.
Yeah.
So I couldn't read it, because I'm like, even if this is what it says, they're just using a different context. I can't read it, because in my head I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
So I had to search for a minute and find it, but like I said, you see those guys in there that lived hundreds of years. And there's even people, not so much anymore, but it seems like there used to be a lot of people that had lived to 100 years old.
Yeah.
Late, high 90s.
Yeah.
100, maybe a couple years over 100. And it's, to me, unless I just don't see it, it doesn't seem to happen that often anymore.
No, it don't. Which with something weird happened with the Noah and the flood. So Adam and Eve, approximately, 4,000 BC. Noah was about 3,000 BC. I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about some of this here a little bit later. We'll get into. I mean, it depends how much, I guess, time we got here. But
I got all the time you want. I got nothing else going on.
But anyway, after the Earth did a lot of changes after the flood, and I mean, I could go into a lot of detail or whatever. But people were living, 9 to 1,000 years, And it says it in the Bible. It'll tell you Adam lived, this many years, Methuselah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we know, some of the genealogies and stuff there.
Well,
but
I think 2 pages I read, that's all it said was this guy lived for this long, and then his kid lived for this long.
And he begat so-and-so, and they lived, down to Noah. And then the earth changed. There was a lot of things that changed on the earth with the Noah and the flood. And after that generation got cut in half, like 400 years, like his posterity. And then it kind of down to, and then Moses, I want to say Moses, I need to brush up on it again, but he's probably around 1500 BC, right around there. And I think Moses did live, which he never died, he was translated, but that he's a translated being, we still believe that he is. But anyway, he lived to about 120 years.
Say, I had him right here, I might be able to find it.
But it'd probably be... Yeah, right there. Noah begat
3 sons.
Shem, Sam, and Japheth, and yeah. But it changed. The world changed quite a bit with Noah and the flood, and so. But that wouldn't really affect the way that our food and stuff is today. That's just kind of a little bit of a historical kind of fun thing. But like you're saying, I think that after it kind of what we know was normal, 120 years, 100 years.
So right here, this says Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth.
Mm-hmm. and then he lived obviously after. I don't know if
Right.
it says how long, but yeah, he was quite old too.
It'd probably take me a while to find it, so we can just kind of.
But yeah, that stuff's in there for sure. But yeah, it is interesting to see, some of the things that go along with that. But
did you have anything else real quick, or can I ask?
Go ahead.
Something? So, because there are so many different versions of the Bible, well, I say so many, on here there is, but I know that there's, like, what are they, Baptists? Like Southern Baptists, I guess. Do you know, because don't they, and maybe I'm wrong, and this is why I want to ask, don't they read and study a different Bible version than what the LDS Church does?
well, actually, it's kind of been something that, and it's kind of funny that the church is, God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, but the church is always getting more revelation and more things that help us be better people and learn about the gospel better. And so we've always used the King James Version, and that's kind of the official version. And actually, a lot of Christian religions love the King James Version. They feel like it's the most pure, and it's written in that old English, language or whatever. It's a little bit more sophisticated, and sounds more like God would talk instead of someone in the hood.
That's
like
what I
you
was
were
saying. When I read it, it sounded like an early 20-year-old kid trying to write a book.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, for sure. So the church has actually come out and says there's actually some versions of the Bible that are some really great translations, and that they encourage us to use it in our study. And they don't say, oh, don't use this or don't use that, but they've recommended half a dozen of them, and because it's sometimes, if you're not familiar with it and haven't read the Old New Testament, even the Book of Mormon Doctrine and Covenants, kind of Joseph Smith, when he translated the Book of Mormon and the revelations that he received, he kind of wrote it in that same style as King James, but they actually said that some of the it's easier to understand. I think more for the younger kids and for this generation, and it's actually, you're not losing anything. I used to think, I won't look at nothing but the King James, which I haven't really ventured into it much because I'm so used to it, and it makes sense to me for the most part, just because I'm a little more familiar with it. But like, with you reading and stuff, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to look at a few of those, and you'll probably catch more things than you would.
So
with some.
When you hear some of these other big name people that are not LDS, but they are religious people, and they always talk about the Bible. I've never known, like, is it the King James Version, and that's, I guess what I'm asking is, do you know?
It depends, and it's random. I think it can.
Do you know, like, what other versions they would be reading?
Oh, they abbreviate everything, like the NLV version or the SIV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they call the King James the KJV,
right,
or whatever. So it's hard for me to know the new international version or the new. There's a few of them like that, but. So
I guess my question would be: does it matter which one I choose?
Well, I think like the one that you were. I don't think it's as hip. Like, it kind of sounds like some hip hop.
Yeah, I got rid of that one. I got rid of that
but
one.
I think like some of these other ones, but I think the church it's probably on their website. They probably actually put it on there. I know there's a few that they recommend, like, to use for your study, and I know a lot of the biblical scholars and stuff will use side by side, and they'll compare them and some of the language, because Hebrew and Greek and all that. I mean, some of these guys, it's just. And English is a very flawed language, one of the most flawed languages, actually. And so we lose a lot. And there's the words that we use to say what they say, it doesn't really mean what it means. And like we were saying before, when the government wants to keep changing the meaning of words, it's kind of hard to, because back 100 years ago, this word, or even 50 years ago, this word meant this word, you know. Like, you could use a word like gay, for example. Like, it used to just mean happy.
Yeah, just happy, exactly.
Or, whatever. And then it become people that were, homosexual. And then it kind of turned into a, what I mean? Now
that's the only meaning of the word. The meaning of happiness has completely disappeared from that word.
For sure. So I think there's a lot of that in it, too. So I think there's a lot of meaning lost. So I think the more that you can kind of compare. And I mean, obviously you're probably not going to open 4 or 5 of them and throw it out there and write a big essay on it.
Well, I don't think my phone will let me open multiple, but I guess the reason I'm asking is like we talked in our previous one, I don't have anything against the Mormon Church. I never have and I never will. But the reason I was asking which one to read is because I am curious which ones, and maybe I'll just have to try to find somebody that is like whether it's a Baptist or whatever, and try to find out which one they do read, because I'm curious just it's got to be the same, but there's got to be some differences. You know what I mean? Because like we talked about before, some of these other religions, they have a beer on Saturday, go to church on Sunday, and as far as the LDS faith goes, there's no alcohol, none of that stuff, right? And so it makes me curious what they read to compare to. Now, I've never read the whole Bible. When we were kids, and when I went to church and
stuff,
and we used to read scriptures as a family, like once a week. We didn't do it every night, but I think like once a week or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read them a little.
You're a little
seminary
with it, yeah.
But I've never completed either one. And right now, and this might sound bad to some people, it's not bad at all. But I don't want to read the Book of Mormon because I'm focused on. I want to know what the difference is, if any at all, that some of these other religions study their Bible faithfully like they say, versus this version, or you know what I mean?
For sure.
Just because it makes me curious to know why do you think, or why do you guys or your religion is okay with this, but this religion's not? I'm just it just makes me curious.
It's all interpretations, part of it, because one of the articles of faith is that we believe, it's the 8th article of faith, we believe the Bible to be the Word of God as long as it is translated correctly.
Sure.
And we also believe the Book of Mormon to be the Word of God. So that was in the Wentworth letter, from Joseph Smith putting, because people wanted to know what we believed in those 13 articles of faith will pretty much sum up the basics. It's a pretty good little tidbit there, but as long as it's translated correctly, and translated is that's a big thing. And we actually have the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, and that's how come we know that there's so many more things that's there. There's so many more things that's missing, and there's actually nothing that we found that I've ever found that's contradictory from the Bible than what we believe, or what's in the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants. Now, other religions will point out, well, this and this, look how contradictory. It's like, but it's really not. It's kind of like the Supreme Court justices and interpreting the Constitution, right? You'd think, well, the Constitution's the Constitution. Well, that's how we kind of feel about the Bible. It's like you make it fit you this way, and then over here, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that. So the reason why that is what sets us apart is that we don't need to worry about interpretation. We have a prophet of God on the earth that will let us know. Whatever the prophet says now trumps any scripture that was written in the Bible, Old Testament, Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith time, whatever. So that's kind of what sets us apart. That the prophet is the mouthpiece for us, because all the Bible is too. It's a collection of books. Bible means library. It's a collection of books. There's a lot of other books, did you know, that wasn't added to the Bible. They picked and choose. Nicaea in 325 AD with the Nicene Creed. They got together, let's decide, because Christians were almost extinct, because they were getting crucified and killed and all that stuff. Peter and Paul and all them, they were brutally murdered, and Christianity barely survived. And so the Catholic Church is kind of the one that come out of it all, and then everything else is kind of branched off from there as a whole.
And didn't you tell me last time that the Catholic Church kind of carried the Christian for a while until
they
it kind
did.
of reestablished?
Until like the not the Renaissance. It's kind of around the Renaissance time, the Reformation.
Okay.
And that's with Martin Luther in 1515, when he nailed the 95 Thesis to the cathedral in Germany. It wasn't Frankfurt. It's the other big place in Germany. But anyway. And then that's where, the Lutheran Church come from. But then you had John Calvin. John Calvin's probably actually the biggest reformer. He's not quite as well known as Martin Luther, but that's where most of your Protestant Calvinist theology and Christianity comes from, especially in this country. And then but the Catholic Church did carry it for a lot of years. So we're very grateful to our Christian brothers and sisters in the Catholic Church and some of the others that carried it as far as it did until.
So where did it, and I don't know if it's where or how, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think between all the religions, at the end of the day, the beliefs are pretty much the same. Like the big picture and what they're trying to have faith in or believe in, it's kind of the same, isn't it?
It's very similar. I think, like the three I mentioned last time, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all goes back to Abraham. When Trump, remember, he passed the Abraham Accords with some of the Middle East countries in his first term. And that's why they call it the Abraham Accords, is because the three major religions in the world go back to Abraham. They claim back to Abraham. And that's why that piece of dirt in Jerusalem, up on the hill, up on the mount, the Temple Mount, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, all their religion goes back to that. And building the temple and the second coming, like you talked about, it's all about the second coming and God, reappearing and saving the people and all that stuff. So it all stems back to that, at least with those three religions. Then you kind of get into more of the other that's a little bit different, like with the Buddhists and Hindus, which Buddhists are mainly, China, and then Hindus with India. And obviously there's a lot of overlap in other countries, but that's just a generalization. Right. So, but that's kind of your three big major. They all believe in the Old Testament. All three, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity.
So, if that's the case, why is it that,
or part of the Old Testament? I know the Jews believe all of the Old. I don't know if Muslims believe past the Abraham time or not, but I know they believe the creation and Noah up to Abraham. But okay. I'm not as familiar with Islam as I am the other two. But.
Okay. So why is it that the LDS Church, and maybe it's not, maybe I'm wrong here, but I thought this is in my mind for some reason, is that the LDS Church is the only true church. So why is that? If these other religions believe kind of the same thing, what's the reasoning to say that the LDS Church is the only true church if they're believing the same things?
Well, it all stems back to so the Old Testament is about, and mainly the Old Testament, we talk about prophets. Well, why were they prophets? What's the definition of a prophet?
Well, I think they're called from God to spread His message, right? To get His message out.
You're right. It's a man called from God to it's authority. They have authority. They have God's authority, and we call that that priesthood authority. And he is God's mouthpiece for. And back then we don't have the technology and things like we do now, because we just have one prophet, right, for the whole earth. We believe that. Now it's Dallin H. Oaks with President Nelson dying here, last fall, because he was 101. He lived a great life. But back then there was different, and that's what the Bible, the Old Testament especially, is about prophets, and they're called from God. So that's a big thing, to actually be the actual doing God's will and what He wants them to do. And so we believe that all those Old Testament prophets are all were called of God. And then we get to the New Testament, obviously, with Christ and John the Baptist, baptized Jesus Christ. We know the story, and Christ dying on, suffering for our sins in Gethsemane, and that's kind of the pinnacle of it all, right? And dying on the cross, being resurrected on the third day, and then Peter and Paul were essentially the same. They were his apostles, right? I mean, Paul was not a direct apostle; he was after most of the New Testament, Paul, they're his letters to the different people that he visited. And so after that New Testament period, like I said, Peter and Paul, they were killed. John, we believe, was translated just like Moses, but that's a different story for a different day. But it even says that doesn't even come directly from the church. That's actually in the New Testament. But so that is what we call the apostasy. So about 90 AD was when John was last seen on the Isle of Patmos. And so after John, the gospel was taken from the earth, and they call that the great apostasy. So Christians were being killed so much. They were able to keep Christianity alive, but there was no one after that was an actual prophet or an apostle, which is the same thing, called of God. And that lasted clear until 1820, when Joseph Smith, prayed to Heavenly Father. He wanted to know. He didn't want to know what church is true. He just wanted to know which one to join. Mm-hmm. And so then he had his vision of God the Father. Jesus Christ appeared and said, "Don't join any of them. You're going to be a big part of restoring my actual church." Because he has the same question you did. And there was a big, bustle, big hustle going. Religion was big back then in the early 1800s. There was really no West Coast then, obviously, right? They were just established in the country in the early 1800s. So religion was big. It's fading now. It's hard to imagine that, it was a big thing. But yeah, Joseph Smith was actually had that authority restored to him. It took him 10 years until he was a little bit older, had to go through some things. But finally, again on the earth, Joseph Smith was actually God's prophet again, the first time since, which the Book of Mormon actually overlaps that time too. The Book of Mormon goes to 400 AD. But the Book of Mormon took place here on the American continent, right. North and South, Central America, where the Old and New Testament took place, most of it back, back in Jerusalem. It's kind of the center and some of that area there. Mm-hmm. But according to the, people obviously, most of the world don't believe the Book of Mormon, so we just say, the great apostasy from Peter and Paul and then on, because there was probably some little places, and there might have been other places other than the Book of Mormon that could have had prophets and stuff too, because obviously with technology and stuff, they didn't have that back then.
Right.
So that's the difference, is God established his church once again on the earth, and Joseph Smith had that authority. He called apostles like Christ had. Mm-hmm. Him and his brother were murdered, Carthage jail there in Illinois. Mm-hmm. Brigham Young was, took him a few years to be the actual president of the church, but he was the lead apostle. Brigham Young, John Taylor, Wilford, and that authority in succession that chain was never broke. And Joseph Smith got that authority from Peter, James, and John as, afterlife beings, because they obviously had passed on, or John, I still believe, still translated, but the other two probably resurrected. But they laid their hands on his head and gave him that authority. And so that's what sets us apart. Not that saying that we're better people, not saying that this and this and this is right and this is wrong. It's that we have that authority to act in God's name, and that's what sets us apart.
So something that I've heard come from someone else of a different religion is their thoughts are, so you're telling me that God came and told Joseph Smith that he was going to restore his gospel and his his word. So they feel like that the LDS Church is trying to say, well, what you believe or what you study or read is irrelevant because this is what it's supposed to be, because God told Joseph Smith this is what it is. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever hear any kind of questions or maybe arguments on that while you were on your mission? Anything about...
Well, most people say that they think that the Bible is it, and that's God's only word.
That's what I'm getting at, exactly.
That's what people say, and there's so many holes in that argument. I can find them. I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah.
2 years on a mission, you get stumped, and you get,
sure.
You go back and study, and you get pretty good at refuting some things, which that's not the whole purpose to be on a mission, is to do that. But it was kind of, that's how I learned when I got stumped, or when I, couldn't answer those questions. I'm like, I got to find out. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, 99% of the time, I was ready for the next one. And did I convert anybody by doing that? No, but I at least had a good explanation and a reason why I believed, that was the reason.
Well, and I think when you had that, did you ever have a negative effect from the other person after talking about it?
Oh, yeah. There was we had some really good people that it was fun to have some good conversations, but most people, they love confrontation.
Sure.
And that's of Satan, no matter if you're talking about religion or whatever. When you're confrontational, it's never a good thing. but it was, it's a good learning experience and good life experience though to go through that, and that's when I learned the best is failure and having to go find it on my own, not just take people's word for it. And I've never really been that type of a person. I mean, I put a lot of stock into what certain people might say, but still want to find out for myself.
Well, I'm the same way. There's two people that I put a lot of stock into what they say, and a lot of what they say has ended up being true, and so that's why I do. But I'm the same way. I don't just take it and run with it and be like, well, he said this, so it's true, Like, I like to try to look some things up and read on it. I probably don't read as much as I should on it, but I at least get a little more familiar with things just to kind of, because, everybody can put their spin on things.
For sure.
And so you just want to make sure that, okay, well, I think, they're probably right on that, or, well, maybe I don't know about that, but.
Yeah. But it goes back to what you were talking about before, the gut feeling. And it makes sense. Like, I mean, I could, and it excites me a little bit. You probably can hear that in my voice a little bit. Because if people, even you, if you could know what I know, like it'd mean the world to me. But if you could just know what I know, and it's very little what I know compared to what you can know and what other people know, but it answers so many questions. The gospel does the other churches can't explain, and it makes sense. And I'm like, and I'm a very literal person. I'm not as big on spiritual, and as much as I'm getting better as I get older. Kids are probably making me softer, which is a good thing. I think that's why we have to have them. Being married, but I was single too long and gotten too many bad habits. And anyway, I'm trying to get broke them as I go. But it just makes so much sense to my mind, to my heart, to everything. It's like, well, duh, of course that's it. It makes sense. It's common sense. The things that we're taught in the gospel, and it just. And so I'm more on the literal side, than I am. I can be spiritual at times, but everything, I'm more literal, and everyone knows that about me. I'm facts based, more literal. But it just makes so much sense, and it just puts my mind at ease to know that. And it's like, well, duh. The big questions in life: why am I here? Where am I going? What's the purpose of life? Not many churches can answer those questions very good, and I'd like to answer them more in depth, but we there's just some things we don't know, and we're just not gonna know. Right. That's just the way. And I think that maybe some of those men, that the apostles and prophets, they obviously have more divine intervention and things like that. If you believe that they're a prophet, if you don't believe that they are, obviously you don't believe that they'll get that information. But I think the closer that we are to God, the more that we'll find out those things in this life. But there's just some things that we won't know until the next, which is okay.
Right.
But it just makes so much sense. And nothing else I've found that even comes close. Like, it's not even a contest.
Well, and I think maybe that's why I decided to download the Bible app, just because I thought, I really don't know, because I've thought a lot about what you and I talked about the last time. Like the one thing that has never left my mind that I think about all the time is some of the stuff we talked about, and you asked me, well, is that what God's telling you, or is that what the people on earth are telling you? Like, that has stuck in my mind so much, because there's so many things throughout my life that I can look back at that and be like, well, what he asked me it's 100% right. I don't know. I don't know what God has told me, because I haven't been religious, I guess you could say. Again, I've never had anything against any of it.
For sure.
I've just kind of stuck to myself, I guess.
For sure.
I think that the way I was raised and the time that I did spend going to church and everything, I think it taught me a good base of how things are supposed to be.
Yep.
As a kid, I'm sure you probably felt the same way at times. Hated going to church. It was just like, oh, I don't want to go. It's just how we are.
Yeah.
But as you get a little bit older, you kind of get into your teenage years, and you kind of start to be able to understand things a little more, so you can pay attention.
Yep.
It kind of, and I think, like, obviously, I'm not as good as I could be.
Oh, none of us are, ever.
But I think because I do remember a lot of what I was taught and what we, But it's not even really so much that, well, they taught me that the Book of Mormon says this. It's more of life lessons that we're taught. Like two great examples I use all the time is Coach Gines and Coach Strebel, Jerry Strebel. Like, yeah, they taught us basketball. But, man, there's so many things that, even if it was teaching basketball, it opens your mind up to other things about life that it goes back to the same point. You know what I mean? And so, but it does make me curious to know, like, all these guys, like Tucker. Tucker talks about the Bible. I don't think there's an episode goes by that he doesn't talk about it in one way or another. So it just kind of interested me, and I thought maybe I should just kind of read it and see.
For sure.
What, because, well, for one, at least I'd know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when he gets into that kind of stuff, I kind of fade out a little bit because I'm like, I don't even know what he's saying.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's even talking. And it actually comes across boring to me.
There's
I just don't know.
There's a lot of the Old Testament that is really boring, actually.
But if I knew what he was talking about, I could maybe tune in a little more and maybe follow it instead of being like, oh my gosh, Tucker,
this
move
again.
on. Yeah. But anyway, it's kind of cool. I didn't read it at all while we were gone. Being out there at state was so dang busy, and
for sure,
we wanted to try to do our sports podcast after each night, and that didn't happen. We did it Saturday morning, but it's just I didn't have time. The kids want to go swimming, and I'm the kind of person, when I go to state basketball, I go to watch games.
For sure.
I'll pay at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I don't leave until actually this is the first year that I didn't watch the last game on Friday night and the last game on Saturday night. We just once when our girls won and it was over, we went home. We had to go grocery shopping and everything else. But Friday night, the kids, the hotel we stayed at had a pool, the slide that went outside. And, dude, it was all day long. Can we go? Can we go? It didn't open till 4. Boston says, what time is it? And I looked. I'm like, oh, and I didn't even think about it. I'm like, it's 4:07. He's like, it's time. We got to go. I'm like, oh my God.
7 minutes went by.
So but I didn't have time to read any of this while I was out there. But now that we're back, we're kind of doing our thing and start reading a little bit again. But I'm just curious. I think that's all it is. Just curious.
For sure.
I don't even know how to explain my feelings on things, because I really don't have interest in going to church. We talked about this before, and it's, again, nothing against it. It's for some reason I can't explain why, but I do have a little bit of curiosity on what's in there. So I guess we'll thumb through it and read it and see what happens. But
no, and I want to circle back to some of that here. I'd like to touch on a little bit more of some things and then come back into what it all ties. Like I said, I can tie religion and politics into anything.
I think you can.
And it's all relevant. I don't think it's random, because I think it all matters. I try to make it real life and applicable. So
Well, it does. For some reason, it's weird that it all will tie back to the same thing.
And so, going with that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of on the line of conspiracy and things. This is one that even hits more home to me more is the Hollywood scene. When we watch a television show, what is it? What do we call? Well, the older people used to call it this. It wasn't a show. It was a program.
A program, yep.
Right, and we don't use that quite as much as kind of the older generations, maybe our parents or grandparents. All the TV programs on or whatever.
Right.
And so Hollywood, believe it or not, it's programming us, and they started a long time ago with, probably since motion picture, maybe even before the motion picture. It's programming us to think a certain way and to expect things to be normal when they're really, really not normal. They're really way out there, and they're really scary, and they're really dangerous. So the movies, the television shows, the even the music, even a little bit, and probably not quite so bad as the motion pictures, but what they're doing there. And there's one that I always use, and there's a bunch that we could go through. The end of time movies, there's the horror films, there's there's different types, there's maybe even down to some of the chick flicks and things, but not quite so much as some of the maybe deeper meaning movies and stuff like that. But the one that really hits home to me, and when it clicked, I'm just like, man, that's the world we live in, is the Hunger Games. And how can the Hunger Games be any more real than what's happening right now?
I'm going to be honest with you, I've never seen them.
I would encourage to watch it. Not a fan of Jennifer Lawrence and her politics. She's a great actress, but she's kind of one of them that, which most of them are kind of
out there.
But I'd suggest to watch the Hunger Games. I think there's 3 or 4 of them, but they've got the capital city, which is to me Washington D.C., and it's just full of just the elite.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got the District 12, and that's where this lowly girl was. And they go to have these Hunger Games, and all these districts take two minors from each one, and they go have these battles or whatever, and the victors, and they all die but the one or whatever. And she causes an uproar and a revolution. And anyway, but there's these in District 1 is it's the capital city, and then you got District 1 through 12, and there was actually used to be if you watch the movie, the District 13, but they destroyed it because they. And the lower the higher the number, the lower the lower they all are on the scale of importance, or their
lower level, on the totem pole.
Yeah, on the totem pole. So, you like what they say, the clothes they wear, the things they do, like for the capital city, and then the ones that are at the lowliest, the poverty level. It's just like that's what they're doing to us. So they put movies and programs and things out there, so we're used to it. So when it happens, we're used to it. There's things like, I think with COVID and things, people found things in movies or shows and stuff that kind of, and it's like that with a lot of the things that we see now. I think if you did a really, and kind of paid more attention, and I probably should pay more attention too, but I watch the same reruns every night. I'm kind of boring, but anyway, it's a place for me to rest and wind down. I'm not really too worried about it, so it's not anyway. So but that Hunger Games one, if you get a chance to watch it, you and Caitlin, it'd be a good one to just watch that series, and then you could but they're programming us for things to be normal. Well, it's with all these I'll use the transgender thing for that's supposed to be normal. That's so far away from normal and funny, in my opinion. Not that the people that they're struggling with that, or maybe call themselves transgender, I don't think that they're bad people, or that their worth as a person is any less, but the theory of it, and trying to gaslight people and trying to tell people that this is you get to pick your gender. It's like, well, truth is truth and facts are facts, and that, I'm sorry, that's one of the easiest ones to do, and it's anyway.
Well, I think what's happening with that is it's a lot of people that they are a little bit lost in life. I don't think they're lost about whether they're a boy or a girl.
They're not.
I think they're just lost. Maybe they don't have a lot of friends. Maybe they don't have a very good home life. Maybe they don't get any attention at home. And so they're looking for something.
Yeah.
Well, somebody somewhere thought, hey, this will make them feel, So people start to feel that way. They feel included. They feel important. Why they push it to the extreme that they do on some of them, I don't understand. And I don't agree with transgender at all. I think it's ridiculous. But it's, like you said, it's a program to make them feel accepted, to make them feel normal. These people could be normal without doing any of that.
Yeah.
It just takes, and I think part of the blame is us in society. A lot of people out there, they'll see, whether it's, you just go to school, for example, these younger kids. There's a kid in the class that nobody really talks to. I tell my kids all the time, we used to tell them in Eagle Mountain, here not so much because they know a lot of these kids, especially now. But like in Eagle Mountain, we tell them all the time, don't you ever single anybody out. I don't care who it is, just don't single them out, because they need friends too. We always tell our kids, how would you feel if you was the one in the back of the class that nobody talked to? Nobody played with at recess. Nobody included in the games that you do. But I think those are the type of kids, and not all of them, but the ones that come out with this trans stuff, it makes me wonder, is that how they were when they were younger? Just nobody paid any attention to them.
Probably a lot of them, I'd bet.
And I think it's us as a society that caused this problem, to allow these kids to buy into this program and say, oh, okay, well, maybe this is who I was supposed to be. Maybe that's why nobody talked to me, because I was supposed to be a girl, or I was supposed to be a boy.
Yeah.
You know, and my honest opinion, the ones that claim they're supposed to be women and they trans into a woman, I think it's pedophilia. That's just me. On a large scale of it. Not all of them, but a large scale of it. Because there's been so many stories, and proven stories. They've been reported on. People have been charged and moved, whatever, of, I'm a woman, so I can go in this bathroom, or I can go in this locker room. You take, oh man, her name just left me. The swimmer, Riley
Gaines.
Riley Gaines.
Yeah.
Take her story for example. You know, when they're in the locker room and this new girl comes in, undressing in front of all of them, still has everything a man has because he's a man.
Yeah.
And for them to have to go through that, there's no reason. There's one of two things. Well, and it's known that the guy was not a good swimmer on the men's team. He was like 400th, ranked 400. Not good.
Yeah.
Whether you like to admit it or not, men are built different than women. It's how it is.
It's biology.
So he comes into women's, he's at the top of the list now. He's the number one. Well, for two reasons this is wrong in my mind. These girls have been practicing at this from the time they were little kids. That's what they wanted to do. They've put the time in, the work in, the sacrifices. And then they get to that level to where they are the ones that's supposed to succeed, and they don't because this dude has now decided he's a girl.
Yeah.
That's the first problem. The second problem is you go in there and you get undressed in front of all these girls, and you're watching these girls undress, and you're a man. Like, tell me how that doesn't have some type of, maybe that's not pedophilia because they were the same age, but it's a mental disease.
It's in that category.
But then you've got the guy, I think he was in Canada. He's like 60-something years old, but he identifies as a 12-year-old girl. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That doesn't scream pedophilia, then I don't know what to tell you, because there's no other reason that this person wants to pretend like and be around 12-year-old girls.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you said, the program.
Yeah.
They've bought into it. And this is a grown man. This is a 60-year-old man. So how he bought into it, I don't know. Other than that, that's the only thing that makes sense to me, because if you're at 60, do you really give a damn if anybody's giving you any attention? Most 60-year-olds I know would rather just go to the house and not have to look at anybody.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like, if people come, they'll associate, but they're not, if nobody does, then fine.
Attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I can't say that I feel bad for them, because we all still have a functioning brain. Mm-hmm. We know right from wrong. We used to know common sense.
It's not so common anymore.
And I think, another thing with trans is this furry thing.
That's what I was going to say. What's the limit?
Yeah,
Can I be a piece of wood? Can I be a turtle? A cat?
Right, exactly.
A fish?
Yeah, where does it stop? And I think a lot of these things, like my daughter, for example, I don't know a person that loves horses more than her. She loves animals, period. Like, I'm talking, loves them to the point to where I'm like, okay, Brooke, you're laying it on a little thick here. But never once has she been like, I think I want to be a horse. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not saying I'm a better parent than some of these other parents who have a kid that thinks they're a cat. That's not what I'm getting at. But what's happening that's making these kids, well, I know what it is, because the parent will turn around and say, well, yeah, you can be a cat.
Yeah.
There's a...
Instead of saying, well, too bad you can't. You're
exactly. Well, and I think the way I would approach that is be like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, but we can't be cats because we're people. Like they're two
you can
different.
Have fun and pretend. Or whatever,
like you can play around a little bit or whatever, or play with the cats and hang whatever. But you can't be a cat. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But some parents, well, yes, if that's what you want to be, you can be anything you want. That's another thing that got changed.
Yeah.
We got told as kids all the time, you can be anything you want to be. they weren't
Not
telling us we could be an
literal.
animal.
Yeah.
Like you can achieve something,
accomplish.
you can be
Yeah.
somebody. But I don't know. I wonder sometimes if we kind of failed as society about not including everyone, or at least trying to. Some people don't want to be included.
For sure.
Some kids don't want to be. You try to include them, you try to bring them in. They don't want any part of it, and that's fine. You did your part. You tried, you know. But they're not all like that. Especially kids. Most kids want to be accepted.
Yes.
They want to have friends. They want to be a part of it, you know. Like you look at this junior jazz program, for example. There's a lot of kids, and not just here. It was in Eagle Mountain. It was this I-9 Sports we played in.
Okay.
A lot of kids have no skill when it comes to sports. They just don't.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They play junior jazz. They play this I-9 Sports because they want to be a part of something. And that, to me, I think that's better for them.
Yeah.
That if a kid's involved in something like that, they're not sitting at home thinking, well, nobody wants to be with me, but my dog does. Maybe I'll just be a dog.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of helps them develop and process things. You know, I mean,
it's good mental health. It's good
Exactly.
physical health. It's good. It's good social health. It's good. You know.
And I always wonder about, you know, speaking of social health, I wonder about kids that are homeschooled. And I know why a lot of people homeschool now, and I understand it. I get it. But
better education for sure.
I always get concerned about the social aspect of it, because if you're homeschooled all the time and you don't, you know, you don't do much, you don't have much of a social life.
For
you
sure.
know, I have some cousins who are homeschooled, and they do have a social life. They're not just stuck at home.
Yeah.
So for them, I'm like, okay, well, it's working.
Because they're probably in all the extracurricular
Yeah, they're involved
stuff.
in cheer and volleyball and rodeo. Like, they do a lot of stuff. And so that homeschooling scenario, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I know there's kids that are homeschooled that you never see them, ever.
And they probably live a long way from town. And,
Yeah,
you know,
and they
just
don't participate in anything. They don't, you know, like, well, one example, a girl that we talked to that plays basketball, she lives an hour away from the high school.
Oh, wow.
So she started doing homeschool because the bus doesn't go that far. You know, parents can't afford to commute that far. So that situation I understand too, but the girl's involved in stuff. You know, she plays basketball, she does all this stuff, so she has a social life. But it kind of, I don't know if worry is the right word, but that's what I'm going to use. It kind of worries me that some of these kids that are being homeschooled, it's great that they're getting an education if they're actually doing it and they're learning what they should be learning.
Yeah.
But man, they're missing out on so much when it comes to having friends. Like, you think about back being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything you wanted to do more than hang out with your friends?
No.
Go to a friend's house and play.
And play basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what kids want to do. So it does kind of worry me a little bit, but I understand the homeschooling aspect of it. I don't know. We've only been back here a couple years. I don't think we deal with a lot of the crap in this school that other schools do.
No. And if we do, it's very minimal.
As far as like the far out there, you know, the books that shouldn't be in the schools, the teachers saying certain things. I know there was an issue here once, but we don't need to get into that. But I don't think we deal with a lot of stuff here.
No.
That concerns me about having my kids go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the staff keeps it how it should be.
Yeah,
you know.
And I think they've got a pretty good staff there now.
Yeah.
Well, they've always had good teachers.
Oh yeah.
But I just mean current time now. You know, there's a good staff there, and I think things are being run the way they should be run. And kids, you know, my kids love it. They never complain about school here. You know, they get along with their teachers, and it's great. You know, but
I think you could say the same thing for Duchesne, Albemarle. You know,
I think a lot of
these, neighboring,
a lot of the smaller areas, you know, because you don't have that, you know, like you take, we'll just use Eagle Mountain, for example. And I'm not saying this is how it happens because I wasn't there long enough to know. But there's a lot of different people in a bigger area. You know what I mean? And there's different beliefs. There's
more diversity and everything.
Yes, and there's parents that if your kid wants to be a cat, they can be a cat. You know, like there's just not, I think parents, and this probably happens here too, but I think parents try too much to be a friend instead of being a parent.
Yep.
And that doesn't help either.
Nope.
I get after my kids all the time, and every time I do, I feel bad for it, but I know that it's for a reason. You know, it's not just to be a butthead or whatever. You know, but I think when you get into bigger areas like that, higher populated areas, that's when you kind of start to run into some things. And like you've seen all these protests about the anti-ice that was out in Salt Lake and all over the valley, really, and none of it happened here. And I'm not saying our kids are any better than them, that's not what I'm getting at, but it's just weird that, or it's different here. It's more of a tight-knit place. I'm sure people here probably believe things a little different than you and I do, and like we said before,
there's a few
fine.
for sure.
That's fine, but it just, kind of back to the school thing. I'm glad that I trust sending my kids to school, and because I want them to have that social life, because I think that is so big for a person as far as developing. Look at a basketball team, for example. You last night when we went over to the girls after they got home and kind of celebrated with them, you can see the bond between those girls. Like they've played together for so long. A couple of girls moved in, and they've been here only a few years, but they still seem to just be they have a strong bond, but they spend a lot of time together. They have a social life. They're not just at home doing their school and then doing whatever they do at home. So I don't know. It's a good thing. And I tell Caitlin all the time, here being in this little valley, we don't deal with a lot of the crap that a lot of the rest of the country deals with. And so it's kind of good. But at the same time, some of the exposure wouldn't be bad, just so that they could understand, like, how crazy it is, or how to avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's hard. You can sit here and tell a kid, hey, this is wrong, or this shouldn't be happening, or this. But sometimes if they don't actually see both sides of it, they don't understand why. They're just trying to go off of what you're telling them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No, but anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. We can get back to what you were.
No, that goes along with everything, and kind of what some of the next things I wanted to talk about. It goes right along with it. That the things that we struggle with now, we think it's new. I hate to tell everybody, there's no new sin, there's no new problems that there hasn't been from the beginning. Now it might look different, it might be in different ways, but there is nothing new now that hasn't been dealt with, or things that have happened in the past. And as we go back, I said I was going to circle back to the Old Testament with Noah and the flood. Why did we have to have Noah build an ark and put the animals on it, and only 8 people survived? Noah, his wife, 3 sons and their wives. Well, I'm going to give you that answer why that had to happen, is because the world was so wicked at the time that children could not be born into this world and actually have true agency. And we talked about agency before, and it correlating with capitalism and being the opposite of socialism, communism. And agency is the number one thing that God's laws that will always has to be followed. And that's hence where we get Satan from, wanted to alter agency, all those things. And so imagine a society as a whole, not just a little bit, but as a whole, to where save only 8 people. It was so bad that you couldn't even have children born into that society and have them actually be able to choose right from wrong, because it was so wicked. There is no choosing right, because there's nothing right to choose. And so God had to cleanse the earth. It was compared to the earth. We believe that we're baptized, by water, by immersion, and then we receive the Holy Ghost, and we believe that's a baptism of fire. And so we believe the earth is the same way. So Noah, in his time, that was the baptism of the earth, because it rained for 40 days, 40 nights, and it was full immersion. There was nothing uncovered on the earth. So that the earth was baptized, essentially. And then that baptism of fire is going to come in the second coming. So that's because the Lord says that He's going to cleanse the earth with fire the second time. He did it with water the first time, and He's going to do it with fire the second time. So there's a lot of symbolism and things. It's pretty cool that way. But so just and I think of it this way: if my mind can think of it, it's happened. if you know, and you can think as nasty, sick, and gory as you can get, and it's happened, and probably even some things we can't even think of. And so I think about that time, and then we're studying the Old Testament this year, and we're just talking about Abraham, which is after the time of Noah. He's about, let's see, probably about 2000 BC or something like that, another 1,000 years after. Talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. Everyone's probably pretty familiar with Sodom and Gomorrah. Similar type thing, but two cities that were similar. And the Lord told Lot, which is Abraham's cousin, and they talk about Lot a lot with Abraham, and he said that he'd wouldn't destroy the city if you could find 50 people or 40 people, and he got down to 10, and they couldn't find that many people that was righteous enough. So Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, and we actually use sodomy is actually a term we use, and it come from that biblical term, the city of Sodom, but which is a very, very not good term, and I'm not going to say what that term is, but I think we all know what that is. Yeah. But there's some bad things that happened back then, and but there's nothing new. It's just it keeps regurgitating. It keeps, and that's what society as a whole becomes so bad and so wicked, and we kind of wonder with some of these natural disasters and things. And maybe, some of those things that happened back then, well, rain is a natural thing, right? It's kind of like a natural disaster. So, the earthquakes, tornadoes, the hurricanes have enhanced, because I think we're getting more back to those old times of more of that stuff happening. And I can use an example in every book of Scripture. Let's go to the Book of Mormon, which I would recommend. If it's great you're reading Old Testament, but if you want to learn about life and learn about the Book of Mormon, the best book of Scripture probably ever you could ever read. It's plain, it's simple, and it was written for our day, because exactly what happened in that book's happening now in our day. But I don't know if you remember talking about the Gadianton robbers and some of the things that happened in there, but they were some bad dudes. It was just before Christ actually was going to come to the Americas. It was right around that time. And secret combinations, that's something we use as a term quite a bit in the church, just because of the Book of Mormon. They talked about secret combinations a lot, and you think about secret combinations in our government and things, talk about the embezzling of money, we talk about child and sex trafficking and human trafficking, those secret combinations, and they were bad, and they were corrupt dudes, and it's happening now again, with the same thing, and it goes in cycles, but this last cycle, like I say, it's getting worse. And then you go to the New Testament, and nothing kind of like that was really talked about a whole lot in the New Testament. But I'm going to talk about one of Satan's biggest tools that he'll use, and he'll try to use good for evil and evil for good. He tries to change the two around. And Christ, when he come and did his mortal ministry, people, if you read the New Testament, he was rejected a lot. Most of the time, he had very few disciples, very few followers. And the two types of people it talked about was the Sadducees and the Pharisees in the New Testament there. They were kind of the religious leaders at the time. And they were so by the book, by what they thought the book was, that they would always try to trap Christ and try to get him to say something, because they didn't believe he was the Christ, the Messiah. The people in Christ was a Jew himself, which is kind of funny that Christ was a Jew, but that's where Christianity come from. But they would always try to trap him and try to make it seem like this or seem like that, like with the woman that committed adultery and come to him, and what do you say about her? And he says, well, who was without sin, let him first cast a stone at her. And they're just like, well, none of us are without sin. they all leave. They tried to get him on a Sabbath day one once too, like he healed a man on the Sabbath, and they says, well, you broke the Sabbath, and he's like, well, I'm doing my Father's work. I'm doing God's work, type of a deal. So just kind of shows you kind of some of Satan's tactics and things that he's using to get. They even tried to use it on someone as as good as Christ, and it doesn't get. Even if you don't believe in, most religions do believe in Jesus Christ, but I think they believe he was like a prophet instead of like the actual Messiah or the Christ. So he's a figure known for good. I don't think there's anyone that thinks Christ was a bad person, even if they're not Christian. So, but if they're he's trying to throw everything he has out of Satan's trying to throw everything he has out of Christ. What do you think he's trying to do to us now?
Right. Well, and you can see a lot of things going on right now where you said trying to make good bad and bad good. There's so many things that's happened over the past, couple decades at least, that when you sit down and think about it, that's exactly what it is. It's trying to make bad things look good and make the good things look bad.
Yep. And it tries to, it's just the opposite, you know what I mean? And it's prophesied. It prophesies it in the Old and New Testament. Book of Revelation's full of that stuff. Some of the Doctrine and Covenants, Book of Mormon, Revelations. There's some great ones in there.
I think it was actually, I was trying to think of where I heard somebody else say that, and I think it was, John Rich from Big and Rich.
Yeah, I like John Rich.
He's been on a couple podcasts, and he's a very religious guy. And I think he's the one that I heard say that because he talks about the Book of Revelations a lot.
Yeah.
And he said that, they try to make the good look evil and evil look good.
Yeah, the Book of Revelation, that's one of the coolest book of Scripture, and it's hard to, there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of interpretation in there, but it's cool, and there's a lot of things, and John seen that vision. John the Revelator, he wrote the Book of Revelation on the Isle of Patmos there, just off the coast there of, God, I can't remember, it's kind of by Italy and some of those countries there, but that same vision Moses saw, that same vision Nephi, Lehi, I believe Noah and some of those prophets, they saw our day. They talk about it in all the books of Scripture. Joseph Smith even seen that vision. He saw from Adam and Eve in the beginning until our time. And John describes it. He'll describe like big birds and things like that, which is probably airplanes or, you know what I mean, and talk about continents on fire and things. And there's been images and things they found of like Australia when they had those bad fires here. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I remember when they had that huge drought and most of their cattle population was, depleted, and it showed an imagery, and it was a guy that was like, look, this could have been what John saw, because he saw, from the beginning to the end, of this earth, and maybe this is some of what he saw of, things on fire and big birds. That's the only way they know to describe some of the things, because they don't know what helicopters and airplanes and things are. So it's very, very good read, very, very interesting, but it's all there for our good and to know. And it all ties back into the second coming of Jesus Christ. And it's kind of a popular term, whether I think you're a member of the church or not. In Christianity, it's a pretty big deal. But even I think outside Christianity, I think it's something that people are familiar with, whether they believe in it or not. And so, it's just the things are there for us to read and for us to study. And so, going back to tie all this together, bringing in AI. I hate AI, I hate technology, I hate all these things, because what's real?
Right, exactly.
What's not real? Not just what's truth and what's not. Now we're seeing things with our own eyes, which goes back to the blue, was it the blue stream or the blue? I can't remember I'd have to look at it again. I'm not very familiar with it.
I can't remember what it's called either. The blue beam?
The blue beam.
Blue beam.
And that's what it was talking about. Like, and it's stuff that we're seeing with our own physical eyes and with our ears, the physical things, not just the spiritual things we can feel, but we're actually seeing it now.
Well, and the hard thing is, too, you see it, but then they sit and tell you that it's wrong. So they're basically telling you not to believe what your own eyes are even seeing.
Yeah,
so it just gets people so confused. And
yeah,
I mean,
so do you believe what your ears are hearing or what your eyes are seeing?
Right, yeah.
Or do you do both, or do you do neither? Or do you do it this time? Do you do it that time?
Well, I'll speak for me personally. I believe what my eyes see.
Oh yeah,
You know,
it's hard
if
not
I
to.
can see it, it's happening. It's there. But the hard thing that they're doing, and I think that's why AI is here,
Mm-hmm.
because they know that people are going to believe what they see because you're watching it.
For sure.
So how can you not? You know, like I can see you sitting right here on this couch, so
Yeah.
I know you're sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Someone could come up to me and tomorrow and be like, well, he wasn't sitting on your couch, and I'd say, you're completely full of it. I saw it, you know. But some of these videos, and that's now, you know, like before I send videos, it takes me a minute.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't even know if this is real, you know. Like I can see it right here.
Yeah.
But man, is it? And sometimes, most of the time, I always go back to the gut feeling. Like, do I really think this could be real, or is this pretty, you know,
You're
stretched?
like, it's AI. You're like,
right.
yeah,
And
it's
so,
pretty.
and I come across some of them when I first watch it. I'm like, holy crap! And then I'll, like I said, every time, so I'll watch it again. And the more I watch it, I'm like, I don't think this is real, you know. And then a lot of them too, like I'll hear these podcast guys that I listen to, they'll start talking about it, and I'm like you, I put a lot of stock into what they say, and I listen to them, and I listen to them break it down, and they'll give their thoughts on it, and then that kind of helps me too to be like, well, you know, this dude's usually not wrong, you know, like he's been proven to be right way more often than not, and if he's wrong, he's one of the first ones that'll come and be like, hey, I missed that one, you know, like I got that wrong.
Yeah.
But the AI and God, man, it's just destroying us. That's all it's doing is destroying us. It's not helping at all.
No.
I'm not a fan either of the technology. I mean, right now we're using technology, so I do like it because it gives us a chance to do something like this, to just,
for sure,
which you and I could sit here and converse without the technology,
sure,
and still enjoy it just as much. But it is cool to be able to let other people,
so they can hear what we have to say.
You know, like I told you before, I had a lot of people be like, you need to have him on again, and I told you that, and you're like, oh, BS, but it's true. Like there's a lot of people that really enjoyed that first one, even though we had the internet problems that it cut us off, and there's been a lot of people that have just said that it was really good to listen to, and you're one that I've always really liked to talk to anyway, no matter what it's about, whether we talk sports
sure.
Because, dude, I tell you one thing that blows my mind about you, and I'll never understand it. You can tell me things that happened in a basketball game when we were 5 years old, you know, and it's like, it just blows me away. And anytime me and Dally have talked about anything, if we don't know, I'll be like, dude, just let me ask Dallas, because I guarantee you he knows. And it's incredible that you have that memory, but that's why you're so fun to talk to, and I think that's why people enjoyed it, because it's just, it's a book of knowledge, man. It's awesome.
It's something. It's something. It's interesting.
It is.
Probably anyway.
It's very
whether
interesting.
you believe it or whether you don't. But I sure appreciate that. I enjoy doing it too. It's fun. I love talking, no matter what it is. Everyone knows I love to talk. But
my family gives me crap down there at State.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'm going to run to the bathroom. Well, I ran into 3 different people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's hard.
Which I kind of started doing that because of the other podcast, the sports podcast. So I ran into coaches and players.
Yeah.
And it was probably a good 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I come back and they says, well, we told you the bathroom was just downstairs. Did you get lost? I'm like, I was talking. And they said, oh, shocker, you know. But I'm the same way. I like to talk about things. And people, there's a lot of people that have the same interests.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thoughts and everything else. So to, you know, like the messages that I got about our first episode, they just thought it was really cool because they thought the same things. They've been wondering the same things, think the same things, you know, and so.
Yeah, like-minded people for sure. Yeah, it's fun to run into those people. Let's kind of bring this full circle a little bit here, and I guess we'll get kind of towards the end of wrapping up here in a minute. We'll see, but. With the technology and things, has anyone ever wondered why did it take so long for all this to come about? If now the Earth, I believe, is older than 6,000 years. Now, I believe that's all longer from Adam and Eve. I mean, according to the history and what we've got, the Earth's much older than that. But that's, like I said, that's a discussion for another day. Mm-hmm. But why did we have the same technology? We could even go back, because it kind of come a little bit further in the 1800s, 1600s a little bit. Let's even go back before the Reformation, before before the big religious reformation of Martin Luther and John Calvin. Things kind of started picking up after that. Why were things, and it even kind of even went into the 1800s, and then once the 1900s hit, then things really changed with petroleum, right, with oil, and that's really what kind of changed the world. Have you ever often wondered why? Why did it take so many years? Were people dumber back then than we are now?
I don't think that's why. I've never really thought about it, but I don't think I don't think that's the case.
It's not the case at all either. There's the intelligence of people now are just, like I said, there's nothing new now that there wasn't back then. But here is what Dallas is going to tell you what he thinks about it, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. We talked about God restoring His church. Well, why did He wait so long, 100 A.D. to 1800? Why did He wait 1700 years to restore His church? Well, for one, He couldn't have restored it in that time period because it wouldn't have survived it. Christianity in general didn't even survive. And then the whole thing with our country happened, right? The revolution and all that. People come over here for religious freedom and for economic growth and for other freedoms. It's not just religious freedom.
But that's a big one.
But that was a big one, that got people out of there, and we became the best nation that there's ever been on the earth and that will ever be on the earth. Yeah, there's some flaws in it, and it's went downhill quite a bit since the founding. There's been some ups and downs, but gradually it's been going downhill. But I know Trump's trying things, but he's never going to undo all what's ever happened. And God bless his heart, but he's only going to be in there for a short time. So, but it was tough even for Joseph Smith. If you know the history of the church at all, like the church almost didn't survive in a country where in the Constitution of their government for the first time ever there was a freedom of speech and a freedom of religion. And they killed him from 1820 to 1844. From when he had 24 years, and he made it to the age we are now. We're 38. That's when he died. That's when he was killed. Him and his brother Hiram. He's a little bit older, but and we were in a country. They were in a country where that was in the actual Constitution, and it almost didn't survive. It almost did not survive. So that is one reason why God waited that long. And so, but the technologies and stuff, remember the inventors, Benjamin Franklin and some of them, we started inventing bifocals, Thomas Edison with the light bulb, electricity, things just kept snowballing. Well, I believe that was because the restoration of the gospel brought a lot of that. The reformers, I think there's reactions with the earth and the things and the amount of righteousness, God's plan, all that stuff. I think it's all it's not by accident. It's all a chain reaction. So we get the gospel restored, back on the earth. We get this government, that's the best that there is. This is the promised land. It was saved because Columbus come in 1492, right? There was indigenous peoples here, but they were. Nothing against the indigenous peoples. They had some great philosophies and some good ways, of surviving and living, but they weren't, industrialized, kind of like the Europeans and the, that come here from Spain or England or, whatever the countries they come here from, mostly Europe. There's some others, obviously, that come with, the slave trade from Africa and a few things. We won't get into that, but it was, the industrialized people that come to this promised land. God preserved this land so He could restore His church and set up this government and this Constitution so that we could have religious freedom in a place that, and the United States has had a great influence in the world, right? Trying to do away with communism, trying to promote capitalism, trying to give people more agency. That's been the goal, and that's the goal. That's God's plan, is to give everyone agency, to put the plan out there, to put as much righteousness out there, and you can choose between, good and evil. But then that technology just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. Well, it's been prophesied, Old, New Testament, Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith's time with the Doctrine and Covenants, that the gospel is going to be taken to the four quarters of the earth. Now that could never happen back in the day of the Old Testament times, but what makes it possible now? Technology. So that's one of the reasons why that we need this technology, is because we need to be able to get the gospel and the truth to the four quarters of the earth for more people to be able to know who Jesus Christ is, to know that what the plan is, the reason that you're here. This is why we're here. But at the same time, it's probably going to be what brings the second coming in, the biggest destruction. It's going to be worse than Noah's time when we get done. It's prophesied in that, and we don't even have to use the LDS church material. We can just go off the book of Revelation and know all that. It gives detailed accounts of prophets going over there 3.5 days. I mean, it's very, very detailed of this second coming of Christ that's going to come. And so with this technology, if it would have happened 20 years into Adam and Eve has an iPhone, you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? Like, it didn't even last 1,000 years. It lasted 1,000 years to the time of Noah, and it was so wicked you had to kill everyone but 8 people to clean the earth. Can you imagine with this technology? So I think it's all in His plan, all in His time, and it's here for a reason. And AI and some of the things and social media, there are great things to bring goodness and greatness, but it's also a detriment.
Well, that's just it. The technology is necessary and it is good, but it's being used by evil people for wrong reasons. That's the hard part about it, is evil people are using it for the wrong reasons. But I mean, it's just it's hard because, like we've talked about, all the stuff you see, you hear, you whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I agree with that, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that's something I've never even thought about before, but that's good.
But I mean, that's kind of my train of thought. These are the things I stay up at night thinking about. That's how sick in the head I am.
I'd be thinking about a lot worse. I promise you that.
But anyway, that's with the technology and things, but we still have the choice. They had the choice back then to choose what they wanted to do. We still have the choice now. With this technology, is it brought luxuries that some of the pilgrims and the pioneers and the people back then, they didn't know if they was going to live day to day with some of the diseases. It says, when Adam and Eve was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, for partaking of the fruit, by the sweat of thy brow, you'll get your daily bread, or pretty much like now you got to work to survive. You're not just in the garden, you know what I mean? And that's a lot easier now because we're not an agrarian society anymore, which means that you grow all your own food and all your own supply and all that. We use a monetary system with money, which we go to work and we buy the things that we need, and people specialize in certain things, and we trade or barter or buy things that we need from each other. And so we have it so much better than most of the world's ever had it. For one, we're lucky enough to live in the best country, United States of America, coming up on our 250th anniversary, which is pretty cool. Which seems crazy, 250 years. It's like, really, that's it?
Right.
But it's we're a young country, but we're lucky. And then I feel like, man, I live in Utah. I feel like it's one of the better states. Yeah, it's got its things and cattle rancher and stuff. It's not one of the better places to cattle ranch, but it's tough. It's dry. Hard. You know what I mean? It's the second driest state, but I'm still lucky to be here. I'm glad to be here. And then to be able to be a Christian and then be a member of God's church, I'm like, I am part of the 0.00000 forever 1% of people that's ever lived on this earth, compared to, I mean, just the people now, let alone the ones that's ever lived. Like, how much more lucky can I be? Like, I'm and then that puts a lot of like responsibility. I'm like, well, what am I doing with that? What am I doing with this knowledge that I have? What am I doing with the gifts that I've been given? I'm like, am I just pissing them away, or am I using them for what God gave them for me? I've got a few gifts that I think that I need to use and do more and decisions, and I know better. That's why when I do something, it's way more wrong than someone that don't, because I know way better, because the things that I've experienced, that I've read, that I've studied, that I know. And so please don't hold me as much accountable for the things that I believe. And it's hard for me because I'm not your typical religious type person. I think I surprised a lot of people that way because I'm rougher, outspoken. The things I do say some words I shouldn't say with the cattle, and maybe have a temper coaching basketball and some things. I've got some big flaws, but please don't ever take the things for that I believe. I believe them. Just because I don't live them does not mean they're not true, and does not believe that I don't believe them. But working every day to try to get better. I do take steps back, and trying to get better.
Like we've said 100 times, nobody's perfect. But I think what you said in our first episode is it's what's in a person's heart. We don't always live exactly what's in our heart. It's everybody's that way. But if you know a person and you know how they are, then you know that they're a good person. Like, it doesn't matter if you cuss at a cow or have a temper in a basketball or whatever. That the basketball, that's just a passion. You know what I mean? That doesn't change who you are, or it doesn't change who. We had people ask us all the time, how do you ever play for Jerry Strebel? He constantly screams, how do you play for that guy? And I always told everybody I wouldn't play for anybody else.
No, I loved it. Awesome. It's
passion, and it's the reason he acted the way he did is because he cared. It wasn't just to see whose day he could ruin, or to see whose life he could ruin, or who he could make hate him. It was just a passion.
Yeah.
But when you know what's in a person's heart, you can look past that kind of stuff, and you don't get hung up on the stupid little things and be like, well, that guy's a jack, or it's just people you have to understand how to take people, and
for sure.
And I see it, but I know I've known you my whole life. I mean, we were neighbors when we were little kids. I mean, I've known you my whole life.
Yeah.
I've known Jerry my whole life, and it's just, you got to know people. You got to know how to take them. You got to understand their meaning behind things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they want the same things as you.
Sure.
Whether it's in life or in a sport or in whatever, you're all going after the same thing. So
sure. Well, let's take that just a little bit further to kind of wrap up towards the end here. Now we kind of got a little bit of a background. It might not have been laid out the best, but kind of, there's no sin that's new. There's no things that are new. There's no, it's all the reason why technology was, saved for these last days. Go through the whole thing. Now we're going to wrap it back to the question that I asked earlier with AI and all these things. How do we know what's real? And I probably talked about this in the last podcast. How do we know what truth is? How do we know what's real? How do we know what to do? And how do we know what to do to survive these last days and leading up to the second coming? How can we do those things? Well, I've got the answer, and I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I'll always continue to say it. That's why we have a prophet on the earth today. We can know what's true. He's going to tell us, hey, I think we need to study this more. I think we need to pray more. I think we need to go help our neighbor down the street more, in specific times. We've got someone there to tell us, hey, this is the way. And not just him, it's through the Holy Ghost that we can know these things. When we're and all people can feel the Holy Ghost, but when you're baptized a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with someone who has authority, you're given that gift of the Holy Ghost to be with you. When we go to church on Sunday, it says that in the sacramental prayer. We'll have His Spirit to be with us if we keep His commandments. We can't be doing really, really bad things and have the Holy Ghost with us all the time. We can if we keep His commandments and we're trying our best. That doesn't mean the influence of the Holy Ghost can't save us still, and it can be in our lives, but it can be there, when we invite it in and when we're doing righteous things and trying our best. It's going to be there. So we have a mouthpiece, a physical thing. We can watch videos of the prophets and apostles, and conferences coming up here in another month in April. Fun time of year in April and October, to be able to hear from those 15 men, plus some of the other, general authorities, some of the Relief Society and young women, presidents as well. From the women, they have great things and they get inspiration as well as the men. But That's how that we can survive now. That's how we can know what truth is and what it's not, through what the Holy Ghost tells us. If our eyes and ears fail us, it's going to be there. God has provided a way. He's always provided a way.
Isn't that kind of your gut feeling, in a way? Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking of myself here and my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've stated before, I'm not a very religious person. I don't keep up on stuff. I don't attend the church. But I think I'm a pretty good person.
For sure.
I don't do things that I shouldn't be doing. I don't do things that harm other people.
Yeah.
I don't, and if something comes along, you get that feeling where you're like, I don't know, and so
the gut feeling is the light of Christ. We're all given the light of Christ. When we're born, that is something that is in all of us. And light is a whole different thing. That's a whole nother deep dive. And light is an actual thing that comes from God, and there's different levels of it. And it's, you could talk about it for days, but we all have that light in us. And the more wickedness we do, people, if you can kind of think of some of the worst leaders, and the Mussolinis, the Hitlers, and stuff like that, they probably didn't have the light of Christ in them one bit. Because if you do so much to make that light go completely out, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But the more things that you do that's right, you have that light of Christ. But the Holy Ghost is a more enhanced. The light of Christ is in all of us, but the Holy Ghost is actually a member of the Godhead. Jesus Christ and God the Father, Joseph Smith saw them both have body of flesh and bone, as tangible as man. They're both resurrected beings. And then the Holy Ghost is actually the third member of the Godhead. He is just a personage of spirit. He does not yet have a body. Mm-hmm. This is a little deeper doctrine. I believe that he'll have a body once, going into the next life, but he is part of the Godhead. He has a spirit body so that he can actually dwell in us. So he has he can actually be in us, and that's God's. And then that's where we kind of differ with the other churches, because it does say they are one, and they are one, but they're one in purpose. Don't mean they're, you know what I mean? And I could name a million scriptures saying they're all three separate personages, just out of the Bible. I don't even have to use anything else, but just for sake of argument. But the Holy Ghost can actually dwell in us and with us, and he can be our constant companion. Just like, and that blows my mind, my literal mind, thinking, well, just like the movie Bruce Almighty, one of our favorite movies growing up, right? Still one of my favorites. We love Bruce Almighty. Had a lot of funny things from that. There's a lot of true things in that, and I don't think they maybe the person that did it was a little bit religious, but downloading all the prayers on the computer, how can you fathom? And that was just in Buffalo or whatever, where he
Buffalo,
was,
New York.
And so he was just Morgan Freeman was God, and put him in charge of just Buffalo. He's like, yeah, we'll see how you do it with Buffalo before, and whatever. It was just kind of a cool little exercise, but how can God hear everyone's prayers at the same time and answer them? And you know what I mean? It's something that we just can't.
You just can't comprehend.
And the Holy Ghost, how can he be with me and with you while I'm bound at my house, or someone's at Africa, or you know what I mean? Like, it's something, but it's not for our. It's okay that we can't comprehend.
I was going to say, we're not meant to understand that.
Yeah.
We're just meant to be able to feel it. We don't need to understand why.
And so it's
how.
And it's okay, but it's true. I'm telling you that it's true, and that's how that we're going to be able to survive. You know what I mean? It's a way that we're going to be able to make it through, and not just, and even if you just followed what the gospel taught, it's going to help you not just spiritually. If you just followed it, it's going to help you temporally. You know what I mean? Like people that are successful in business or in life or whatever, like they're doing things that, there's some corrupt business people, there's no doubt. Yeah. But if you're doing it the right way without corruption, you're doing a lot of good things. You have a lot of good habits. You're doing great things.
Right.
So even just physically, it's going to give you, a lot of great things and a great outlook on life, even if you're not up for the spiritual part of it, if that's not your thing.
One thing that I kind of struggle with understanding is people that are not spiritual or not religious or not any of that kind of stuff. I still think that we all have the ability to determine right from wrong. take just a solid basic, killing someone. We all know it's wrong. You don't have to be a religious person to know that that's wrong. You don't even have to believe in God to know that that's wrong. No. I don't think.
No.
So I think there's just some people, you named some of the leaders in the past that they didn't have that light, like you were saying. And I think there are just some people that they're just evil.
Yep.
There's no good in their hearts. And I think when you're that type of person, you focus and care about one person, and that's yourself. You don't care about anybody else or anybody's feelings or anybody's well-being or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something we just have to deal with, because there's people like that, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Now I think they're a much smaller number
for sure
than the people that know the right from wrong, and they, even if they're not religious, like myself, for example, I still know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
Or how you should treat somebody. Like I try to, there's people that you run into that they drive you nuts. Like maybe they talk 100 miles an hour, or maybe they chat your ear off with something that you really don't care about or anything. Like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But I can't walk away from a person. You know what I mean? Unless they're just being like rude or disgusting or something like that. But if they're just talking and it's driving you nuts, I can't walk away, because obviously that person wants to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they were sitting there looking for me and being like, oh, there he is, I can talk now. Like,
no.
It's just, sometimes you just find somebody and you start talking, and I have people, they'll be like, oh man, that person's annoying, or I don't know how you could sit there. And I'm just like, first off, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I might not be all that interested in what they're talking about, but they want to talk. So what? There's probably things I like to talk about that they're not interested in.
Yeah.
So I just try to, like I told my kids, include everybody. It's not, I've been trying to put this baseball team together here for Tabby.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, I think we're there. But
awesome.
There's kids that I know that haven't played baseball before that go to school here. And when I first had this meeting, I said, I don't care if they've ever played or not.
No.
I do not care. If these kids are interested, they want to play, please come and play. And it kind of goes back to what we said before. Sometimes kids just want to be included.
Yeah.
I want that for kids. I can't. I've been thinking so much down there at the state tournament. These girls that we went and watched, a lot of them I know. I have known them for a lot longer than they've known me, because I was away for 8 years. But dude, I just, Shantea said something last night when all the coaches were talking, and she said, I love you girls like you're my own. And I'm not going to go that far, because I don't spend that much time with them like she does. But man, I care about these kids. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm from here. I played ball here. I went to school with their parents. I don't know what it is, but I care about these kids. And like when I started with your brother coaching this junior high girls team, I couldn't have been more excited when he called me and asked me to do it. I went in day one and I told these girls, look, I know a lot of you girls don't know me. Some of you I've known since you were a year old, and you don't know me, but I'm here because I care about you girls and I want to help you girls be better at something you enjoy to do, And out there watching them at state, like I talked to KP a few weeks ago and a few times here and there, just about the game, and things that, and I even told her, I was like, look, I take it for what it's worth. This is just kind of what I see, because I like to try to help in something. If I can see a player that's struggling with something, but I know they can do it, I just kind of like to throw my 2 cents in, right? And I don't go too far, because I don't want to be the person that's trying to coach somebody outside of their coach. That's not what I want to do.
No.
You guys as coaches, you're the coach. You're there for a reason. But it's just, I think I want to talk to them about it because I do care about them, and I want to see them achieve what they're trying to achieve,
Yeah.
And when those girls won Saturday, I'm going to be honest with you, dude, I almost got emotional. And I don't know why. I still think, like, why did I even feel that type of emotion? And I don't know why, but I know I did. And I didn't break down or anything, but I could feel, you get that feeling, you're like, man, what? And when I went down on the floor to congratulate him, I found KP and I gave her a big hug, and I told her, I was like, I told you that these things would pay off, like I knew they would. And it just, it's so weird that it almost meant as much to me as it may have to them, you know. And I love being back here. I love being involved with these kids. It sucks for me that I missed out on so many years. But with that being said, I'm glad I did, because if I wouldn't have missed out, I wouldn't have met my wife. You know, I wouldn't. There's a lot of good that comes from missing my time here.
Oh yeah.
But I'm so glad to be back here, and I love this place, man. I love this town more than anything, and I don't know. That's, you know, back to this baseball thing. I don't care if I know these kids or not. I don't care if they've played or not before. I care about these kids here. They're a part of something that I was a part of, and I know how important that was to me to be a part of. So I want to make sure they all can feel that if they want to, you know. Like after the alumni tournament, or I guess it was during the alumni tournament, Liz was going around kind of asking people some questions. And she asked me, what is it? Well, I think she asked them all, but she asked the question, what does it mean to be a tabby on a tiger? And I was like, it just kind of hit me, you know, and I'm like, man, I don't even know if I can say what it means. Because there's just a certain feeling that you have being brought up in this, not even just basketball, just in this community.
Culture.
It's the culture, and it's everybody, for the most part. Everybody's got everybody's back. You know, I mean, you have your quarrels and your disagreements, and certain people might not like certain people, but you know, that's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But when she asked me that really made me think, you know, like I wouldn't want to be a part of anything else. You know, no. This system here, and I'm not talking about the basketball system, I'm talking about this system of life that we have here in this little town. And I'm sure there's a lot of little towns like it, but where I'm at,
yeah, I think there is.
I can't put it into words because it's just so important to me. And when I first started coaching these junior high girls with Chase, it did feel a little weird because I didn't want them to think that I was some weirdo coming in trying to be close with them, you know. Because I'm not. Like, if the girls like me, that's great. I hope they do, because I'm there to try to help them. But for the first few weeks, it did feel, I didn't really dare say much or show much, because I'm like, you know, these girls really don't know me. You know, like, there's a few of them that they know who I am because I'm pretty good friends with their parents. But it's just that, I don't even know what got me onto this tangent here, but I think it's just the caring for people and wanting to help and wanting to include everybody, you know. And I guess where I was going with it is kind of back to the I was going to say something about the church thing and the religious thing, you know, with there's people that are just evil. There's also people that are just good, and they're just good-hearted people.
Yeah.
Even if they don't go to a church, whether it's the LDS church, the Catholic church, the whatever, there's just good people that want good for everybody. You know, and I think that's something that is way overlooked by a lot of people. And if we just get back to the... Oh, I know what made me think of it when you said the prophet says we could help our neighbor more. That's what made me think of this, is just step in and help, you know, just be a... Even if you're just a shoulder to lean on or something, just step in and help and try to take care of people. And these kids, like I said, these girls at this tournament, it was one of the coolest things I've watched. And I wasn't a part of it, but I felt like I was a part of it. You know what I mean? And I feel like these girls, like, they look up. Well, you heard Coach Fabrizio, you heard Jake when he got up there, and he says, when I looked up in that stand, I couldn't believe there was that many people from Tabby that showed up. You know, he said people he hadn't seen in years.
Gives you chills.
It does, and then it took.
I've been part of it.
Well,
playing
exactly,
and coaching, and I just, oh man, it'll.
And that's, you know, and I've only been a part of it of playing, but that, for me, that was enough. You know, there's still people that I see, that I talked to some people down at State that they knew me. I haven't seen these people in 20, how long I've been out of school? 20 years? 21 years?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen them since. I sat down and talked with Coach Barney from Penguich.
Yeah.
We talked about that game at the state tournament. And it's crazy to me that people know, you know, but they know who I am because of where I come from.
Yeah.
Because of the way I was raised, the people I was around, the system I was a part of.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I want these kids to have too. You know, I'm not saying I'm some famous, popular person that everybody just knows. But in that world that we're kind of talking about, the basketball world, this is a place that is well known. You know, and I want these girls, and even the boys, you know, the boys didn't make it, and hopefully that changes next year, but
for sure,
the girls that were there, I want them to be able to feel that 20 years down the road. I want them to be able to know that if things get a little bit tough, you can always come back home and there's going to be a bunch of people that's going to have your back to help you with whatever you can. And that kind of goes back to this Holy Ghost feeling, this God feeling. Like I said, you don't have to go to church to feel that way, to try to help people.
No.
I'm not, and maybe the church is good for it. I'm not saying it's not. There's a lot of benefits from it. But I guess I want people to understand, because I know there's people that feel like I do when it comes to the whole religion thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think you can still live religiously and practice religion or whatever. You know, like I said, I'm starting to read the Bible. I haven't touched a Bible or a scripture in probably 25 years or more.
Yeah.
But I think there's still people that they just want to help, you know, and I guess, like I was saying, I want these kids to know that when they graduate and 20 years, 30 years down the road, if things are just rough, or even if they just want to come back and just feel it again, you know, like it's so cool to me.
Well, that's my way of, it's actually my way of using all those principles that I've learned through what I've talked about. It can be a non-religious way to we've saved lives here. I don't care what anyone says in these basketball programs.
Mm-hmm.
We've saved lives. I've seen it happen with guys before me that I've played with, kids that I've coached. You know what I mean? I'm actually going to mention two guys, because this is and I don't think they're going to care that I say this, but and you were there as well. 2002, well, actually 2001, it kind of started, but 2002 was kind of the year. We were 12-0, really good basketball team. We had one senior that year, but 5, 6, 7 really good juniors, really good basketball team. Two individuals got kicked off the basketball team and for drinking, and back then it was, you know, the team rule that it was one and done.
It was a zero tolerance.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say his name. Trent Gibbons actually had it the year before, and then he had it again this year, and then Joe Pippy was actually the one with him in the junior year, and it actually cost us not going to state. And could, you know, Coach Gines, Coach Strebel, and, you know, Mr. Parks is the principal, you know, because they have swept it under the rug, forgot about it. You know, would we have had a better chance to go on, and we maybe could have, you know, contended for a title?
We possibly could have won it,
because them two are a big part of our team. Not saying that, you know, some of the guys that stepped in and played wasn't you know, good basketball players, but there's certain talent levels and certain things, and when a team's rolling like that. Didn't end up going to state that year, but the next year, whole different thing changed. You know, we probably should have won it that year. I mean, but I mean that's happened more than once to us, but it happens.
That damn Manila,
them dang Catrons, but heck, that's some great guys though. But you know what I mean. But not just that, and Trent. You actually kind of got closer to Trent and Joe actually, and even Riley and Kyle, and you know. And some of those guys, but they were always looked up to them. They were my seniors when I was freshman. I was a cameraman the year before or whatever too, but kind of got to know them really well. But then I look back, and Trent, he did live here for a little while with his wife and kids, and I was so sad when he left the community, because he was renting, and I don't blame him. He couldn't find property here to build, and he couldn't find a house to buy, and I'm like, dang, I feel bad, because I really looked up to Trent. You always talk about that Brandon Casper is a guy you always looked up to, you know, listening to you and Dally, you know, in your podcast. But Trent Gibbons was a guy that I always looked up to and wanted to be like Trent. But that basketball, that our basketball program saved those two's lives, as far as I'm concerned. Trent now is he's a foreman at 4 Point. Joe Pippy is he's had multiple, you know, high-end jobs, you know, business owner. He's done, you know, great, has a great family. Trent as well has a great wife and kids. I don't know his wife quite as well, not, you know, because he's been away for just a little while. But that just with those two in that example, and just with that little bit of, you know, period of time being a little bit uncomfortably and a little bit, you know what I mean. Those two, who knows what would have happened if they wouldn't have been in our basketball program.
Right.
You know what I mean. And so I'm just like, every time I see those two, I'm just like, them two are living proof that, you know, that this program, yes, we're here to win championships. We make bonds as friends, as players, fellow players, or coaches, or coaches and players. You know, like talked about Jerry's one of the people I still look up to, and one of the still good friends with him. One of my favorite people, and I've got some players that's I've coached and stuff. You know, like Hayes and Wyatt, and even some of the more recent ones with Chance and some of these guys. You know, just so, when they see me, they just grin. You know what I mean? Same thing with with Jared, which I see Coach all the time. If I didn't see Coach pretty much every day, it'd be the same thing with Coach too. You know what I mean? And Shay and Brandon and Levi and stuff. Has coached me for a little while there too. But had some great coaches and things. But and the girls program, it's the same thing. I'm just not. I haven't been in it.
Not directly involved.
You know what
I
mean?
Yeah.
And I know, with Doug starting it back in, I think, 98 is when they started it, when Shelley and Janae were freshmen, because we did have a basketball program way back when Cricket Ward, I believe, played, because she went on to play at the U, and I think they played for a few years there or whatever, but we started it back up, and, what Doug and Luke and them guys did, and then, and Kim come along, and Sky a little bit there, and then Jake, and the coaches that he's had, he's had, half a dozen coach with him over the last 11, 12 years or whatever. But I know they've saved girls' lives. I know we've saved some of the boys' lives. Like, there's another, and I'm going to mention him. Saw him last night at the state tournament, old Isaiah Vilas, call him Izzy.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know him. I know who he is, but didn't know him.
One of my favorite people, cool dude, kind of funny, one of the few black kids we've ever had in our school.
Yeah.
But just I mean, and race doesn't mean anything, but he's just a freaking cool dude. And I believe that, and he has a good heart, and he didn't maybe get the best deal in life, but man, he come through our basketball program. He got bonded, he got friends. We watch out for him. I always try to keep track of him. I know Coach does, comes to games and stuff, supports the team. Told me he was engaged the other night.
Oh, really?
And I'm just like, I'm not much of a, I'm not a very emotional person a lot of times and stuff, but I got, I was pretty,
you could feel it.
Man, I was proud. I'm just like, dude, you gotta give me an invite. I got, I want to come. And he's like, oh, I got you. And I just so proud, you know what I mean? It's nothing that, I wasn't his mentor or anything like that, but I'm just like, it's what our program, it's not me, it's not necessarily a certain person, but it's what our, and it's a way for me to bond with the kids, a way for me to, and there's some kids I know don't like me, and that's okay, you know what I mean? I'm not a flavor for everybody, but, for the most part, the bonds and the friendships and the things, and I hope that I can teach these kids these things for life. It's hard, and we can be friends, and we can be cool, play cards on the bus, whatever, but when it's practice time, it's game time, we're here to do a job, we're here to do a duty. It's here to teach you principles for life, but we're friends at the end of the day.
Well, it goes back to exactly what I said about Coach Giles and Jerry. They taught me so much about life, but even though they were teaching basketball, it teaches you life too.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'm not. I mean, hopefully those guys didn't mention that. Hopefully that I mentioned their names, but it's something very great, and they've went on to do great things, and I just believe that and they're going to raise great families and have great kids, and hopefully what they've been able to be involved in their little bit of community things and things that they're the effects that they're going to have. It's the butterfly effect.
I would imagine they are, because Trent's a very likable person.
Oh man,
I guarantee you, I haven't seen Trent in years, and I know if I seen him, we'd talk for a minute.
And
and like I did talk to him on the phone a couple years ago when we thought about moving back. I called him about possibly getting a job, but he's just a guy, if you ran into him, he'd talk to you and probably, ask you how's things and whatever. And Joe, we see him all the time. Joe's one that I I spent a lot of time with in high school. He's a couple years older than me, but we're cousins, and we've always been pretty close. And we got talking recently about, we used to watch Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and When Nature Calls. I mean, we'd go to his house and we'd watch him over and over and over again. And I said a line from it one day at one of the games, and he just busted up laughing. And I can't remember which one. He told me one of his girls. I can't remember which one now, but I could say it to him, and they'd know exactly what I was talking about. I'm like, dude, that's the coolest thing I've heard all night long.
Yeah.
But, well, anyway, I think we can probably wrap up there. That was a good conversation, and there's going to be a lot of things that's going to be on my mind for a few weeks again, just like the last time. So,
For sure.
but man, I appreciate you doing it again. And
Yeah, it was fun. It was
like I
good
told you
time.
the other day, I may just have to make you a co-host. We might just have to make this a normal thing.
I don't know. I might have run out of things to talk about.
I don't think so.
I start getting into the weeds, and people are like start dozing off, falling asleep. They're like,
That's all right.
We really didn't need to know all the details about all this and about all that.
No, that's okay. We're still enjoying it.
Random basketball facts and years and stats, and it's like, well, no, it's interesting to me, but I don't know if it is to everybody else.
That's all right. I said when I first started this, I told Caitlin, I said, if people listen, that's just the cherry on top. If nothing else, we can enjoy sitting here talking about it.
It's a good time.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll do it again sometime.
For sure.
Until then, thanks guys for listening, and try to be a little more consistent on this and not skip weeks. But it's hard sometimes. It's hard for me to sit there and try to think of things to talk about and make it somewhat entertaining, which completely contradicts what I just said. At least we talk about it, but it is hard when I'm the one trying to do it and try to make it entertaining. But anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll do another one next week. Hopefully I've got another guest on, and that one should be a lot of fun too. So thank you.